across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and a good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock, and of course coming up at midnight it is your chance to talk back, and I think we have to talk about Nigel Farage. It's certainly on the front pages of the papers as to what's going on, and if you believe that this is some kind of a witch hunt, do you think that Nigel Farage and Reform have been singled out for this kind of treatment? Do you think it's really unfair that we should be asking questions about the money that Nigel Farage has been gifted? Look, the rules are the rules, OK? And I think that we certainly have a right to know why this money was donated in both cases that are being investigated, or at least the first one's being investigated from Harborne, the 5 million. We need to know if there were any strings attached to that. And also, it is in the rules that you're meant to declare this, and there's really only one exemption from that, and that is if it was gifted by family, close family and friends, then you don't have to declare a gift over £300. But listen, we'll get more of those rules and regs in a moment from my first guest, but I want to know from you, do you think that this is unfair? Do you think that this is the establishment going after Nigel Farage? He certainly does. He thinks that this is the establishment being afraid of reform. Do you think that this is a witch hunt? So do give me a call on that. The number you're going to need is 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. Or do you believe that we have every right to be challenging where any politician gets any donation from? Do give me a call on that. Just to let you know what else is coming up in the programme, we're going to be talking to Amy Fisher. She's going to be here to go through the front pages. We're also going to be looking at the weight loss pill, which became available today in the UK, and why pharmacists are running a little bit scared of what might happen next. So we'll be discussing that a little bit later. Also, the FIFA red card row. I'm livid about this. I'm not even a football fan. Well, I might be turning into one. But we're going to be talking about that as well. We're going to be joining Steve Forbes in North America to discuss that. But first, a Sunday Times investigation revealed yesterday that the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage received extensive undisclosed financial support from a convicted fraudster called George Cottrell. Now, Cottrell reportedly funded Farage's private security, drivers, social media staff and London accommodation before his 2024 election. This surfaces alongside an ongoing parliamentary standards probe into an unrelated £5 million donation, which was also for security. That's a lot of security. Labour and the Lib Dems are urging the Standards Commissioner to investigate this now, warning a serious breach could trigger a suspension of Nigel Farage. But Nigel Farage has dismissed the report as an establishment hit job. But the bigger question remains on how political parties are funded and how they should better handle these donations. Well, joining me now, I'm thrilled to say, I haven't spoken to him for a while, is Tom Brake, Chief Executive of the cross-party pressure group Unlock Democracy. Tom, it has been a while. How good to see you again. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you very much. Indeed, good to see you, Petrie. Many, many years since we last spoke.
Many years. I've thought of you often, though, but thank you for joining me. Look, the question here is, and Nigel Farage has said he has done nothing wrong. There is no wrongdoing here. But questions are now being asked at the highest level. I'm not expecting you to tell me whether you think he's done wrong or not, but just remind us of the rules and the rules that may not have been followed.
Well, there are clear rules about disclosure for members of Parliament, and for candidates 12 months before they are elected. And the purpose of these rules is really so that people have an understanding of who is funding people, who are gifting to politicians, because I think it's important that people have that clarity. And that's why I think the inquiry the Parliamentary Commissioner is conducting into the £5 million gift is so important. We know from the polling that we carry out that people really hate mega donors buying influence into British politics. And I know from my time as a Member of Parliament that donors do get influence, they do get access that's not available to other people.
When we look at the sort of money that Nigel Farage has been given, his argument is these were personal gifts. What are the rules surrounding personal gifts?
Well, the rules around personal gifts is that personal gifts are allowed, but at the same time, the rules are clear that if there is any doubt about whether something should be declared, the onus should be on declaration. And this is what would appear not to have happened in this case. I'm not going to preempt what the Parliamentary Commissioner is going to find. But I should also point out that these rules are not ones that just apply to Nigel Farage. These are rules that apply to every single Member of Parliament, every single candidate who gets elected in a general election. So he's not being singled out. Anyone else who was in similar circumstances from any other party would undoubtedly be investigated by the Parliamentary Commissioner in the same way.
We have this latest case, though, with George Cotterill, which is added to Nigel Farage's woes as regards to, again, donations. Is this a little less clear-cut, or is it just as simple as, look, if you're staying in somebody's house and they're paying tens of thousands of pounds a month rent, then that is a gift in kind, and therefore you should declare that as well? Is it just as clear-cut or less clear-cut?
Well, I'd say it's just as clear-cut, really. Again, given that the rules are clear in stating that if there is any doubt things should be declared, this could be another example. And I must question whether it's sensible for any politician of any party to take donations from someone who has been guilty of money laundering. It doesn't sound to me as though that's someone who parties should be seeking financial support from.
George Cotterill and Nigel Farage are close friends. In fact, I believe George calls him Daddy. At least that's what I've read somewhere. Is it just not acceptable for people to give big amounts of money to close friends who are in politics, or is it the angle of the money laundering? Is it the angle of influence that they may want to have over that politician?
Well, first of all, there is a simple principle, I think, that we want big money out of politics, and we don't want anyone donating huge amounts of money to any politician of any party, because it has an impact. At the very least, what a donor is going to get that is not available to someone who hasn't donated to a political party is they're going to get better access. They're going to get the politician responding more quickly to a query that they might have. They're going to get access to donor lunches or donor dinners. They're going to have the ear of that politician in the way that is not available to anyone else. And of course, I would suggest that the access to that politician that they're going to get is going to be multiplied according to multiples of donations. So you get this amount of access if it's 1,000, you get 10 times as much if it's 10,000. If it's 5 million, well, you're going to be getting access almost round the clock.
I mean, it sort of reminds me of looking at what's happening with American politics, where you get huge amounts of money donated for huge amounts of influence. And we've seen, certainly recently, we've seen pardons happening from President Trump, where it appears to have been a lot of money donated in order to facilitate those pardons. Is there a concern of British politics going in the same direction, allowing this sort of donation to take place?
Yes, there is, and that's why Unlock Democracy, we campaign for a cap on donations, because otherwise what we will see is that the amounts of money going into British politics will grow and grow and grow, which means that politicians will be going out to seek more and more money from a very limited number of donors. They're not going out to seek small sums from millions of people. They're going out to seek millions from a very small number of people. And those people will have interests. Now, Mr. Harborne, it may be a complete coincidence that he has a very great interest in cryptocurrency, and Nigel Farage does. Nigel Farage has set out perhaps policies that some would argue would be quite attractive to the crypto industry. And that link, which we've seen develop in, frankly, an appalling way in the US, is something which I think we should try to avoid developing here, because at the end of the day, it'll be the consumer and the taxpayer who I think will pay for that cozy relationship between politicians and tech bros or whoever it might be, who has a very large financial interest in a particular industry and is seeking that politician's support to favour their particular industry, whether it's AI or crypto or any other sort of developing technology.
I know there are inquiries ongoing, aren't there, into a conversation that Nigel Farage had with the Bank of England, for example, about crypto, about asking them not to get involved in the crypto market, which it would appear would at least support Harborne's business if they didn't get involved with that. Is that the sort of thing that you're potentially, even if that wasn't anything to do with the 5 million, it's the way that it looks, it's the way that it appears to have happened that could cause Nigel Farage problems?
Well, there's a very strong case, I would argue, for extending the lobbying rules, for instance, to cover MPs, so that MPs have to declare who they are meeting and why they're meeting in the way that ministers have to do. I think that would be a positive development. And just to go back briefly to the issue of political donations, given that this is a political football, what happens is that one party in power makes changes which the other main opposition parties claim is targeted at them, and then the same happens in reverse. It's time for the Electoral Commission, I would argue, as happens in other countries, to take responsibility for deciding what donations would be suitable and acceptable, so that we can finally get on top of money buying influence in politics, something which Steve Reid, the Secretary of State, says a democracy in the UK isn't for sale. But as long as donors can donate unlimited amounts of money, so a UK donor can donate an unlimited amount of money to any political party, then that is buying almost unlimited influence.
So in other words, before you accept a donation, it is cleared by an external body?
I think before you, we want to take setting, for instance, setting the cap. So now what we've got is a cap of 100,000 for overseas donors. Now the government is proposing that someone who moves to the UK for the first 12 months of them moving back to the UK, that cap would apply. That sort of sounds a bit political. It sounds as though that's just trying to deal with Christopher Harborne. If we take this away from political parties, taking it away from government, say to the Electoral Commission, you take responsibility for this, you work out what is right and what is best for the country and ensures the integrity of our elections, you then take politics out of it and you give it to an independent body. And I think that would be the fairest way of dealing with this.
A lot of political parties will say, look, without these donations, we cannot survive. And I know there's been conversations around the taxpayer funding, parties for elections, for example, which wouldn't go down very well either. So what kind of cap are you talking about? And would that provide these parties enough money in order for them to advertise themselves and push their agendas forward?
Well, I agree that more public funding, so more taxpayers' money going to political parties. I think any party that put that in its manifesto at the moment would not, would not do very well at the next election. Although, of course, there is already taxpayers' money that goes in to support the work of the opposition parties in terms of them holding the government to account. But there are other countries. So, for instance, France and Canada both have quite tight limits, sort of thousands of euros or thousands of dollars, compared to the unlimited donations that people can make in the UK. And they manage to make their politics work. And in Canada in particular, what they have done is they have transitioned from getting a small number of donations, or a small number of very large donations from a small number of donors, to getting a far greater number of donations from a much larger group of people, but smaller donations. So they've taken that influence that big money has out of their politics, and instead are getting contributions. I think what they've got is there's a tax incentive to do it, so you get sort of tax relief for making a political donation. So I guess there is still some taxpayer funding in effect, but that has meant that big donors are no longer big players in Canada or in France, and those, I think, are countries which we should seek to emulate. Certainly the polls are very clear. People do not want unlimited donations, and they believe that large donors have an undue influence over British politics, and we need to stop that.
If there was a cap of 100,000, as you say, from overseas players, donors, how was Harborne able to donate 5 million in the first place?
Well, because at the point when he donated it, the cap wasn't in place. This cap is something that was announced recently by the government retrospectively, but not to the period before his donation. So what he has done, and at least one other large donor, has simply said, well, I'm going to say that I've got UK residency, so I'm no longer just saying I'm an overseas UK citizen donating, but now I've got property in the UK, and therefore I can donate in the UK. But what the government are not addressing is then they haven't gone for the simple solution. The simple solution was a £100,000 cap on anybody from anywhere, companies or individuals, and then you've got really clear, simple rules. And I think that would really make sure that we weren't having to discuss on a regular basis large donations. And it's not just Nigel Farage, other parties have had large donations. The Sainsbury's are very generous donors, or have been in the past, to Labour or the Liberal Democrats. So there are other contributors who are donating very large amounts of money, and politicians may claim that donors have no interest, and they're not bothered, they're not expecting something in return for their donations, but the public don't believe that.
With democracy as it is at the moment, we've certainly heard from Elon Musk, who wants to and has been trying to support the right in Germany and across Europe. Is there a real fear, if we don't get a grip of these sort of donations, that it will in fact end proper democracy?
Well, there's certainly a real concern that someone like Elon Musk, the most wealthy man in the world, is using his social media really to foment dissent, to perhaps try to cause demonstrations in the UK over issues. He doesn't seem to be terribly well informed when he's trying to stir things up, but he's playing a very negative role. And of course, the algorithms that are used by social media, by X and others, simply sort of encourage his posts and others to go viral, because people are more interested in things that are about sort of aggressive things than they are good news stories. So he's playing a very negative role. So I think that's slightly different in that, well, he hasn't yet donated a very large amount of money.
He did
Mr. Musk,
talk
he has
about it,
said
didn't he? He
he
did
did
talk
talk
about it,
about it.
yeah.
He talked about, I think, £70 million to reform, but then fell out with Nigel Farage and now thinks that Mr. Lowe is more, is more in line with his views. So he hasn't donated large amounts of money, but he has X at his fingertips and uses that to create sense, to spread misinformation and disinformation. And so that issue of misinformation and disinformation is one that I think the government do need to be harder on, because we can't have, whether it's Mr. Musk or, for instance, Iranian trolls, as I understand it, when the internet went down in Iran, the number of pro-independence SNP X users, or more, to be more precise, probably bots, dropped significantly. So we've got that degree of interference that is already happening. So we need to be much more effective at clamping down on this. And I think one thing that is positive in what the government announced today is that they're going to appoint the permanent secretary at the Home Office as the person who is going to be in charge of defending democracy. Because at the moment, all too often, when something like trolling happens from overseas states, it's not clear in the UK government who has responsibility for dealing with it, and it tends to fall between the gaps. Well, now we know that it will be the permanent secretary at the Home Office ultimately who will need to find solutions to those problems.
Tom, just quickly, what is the pushback in not capping donations? It seems like, to me, a very sensible thing to do to ensure that there isn't undue influence. But what is the argument against doing that?
Well, I think the only argument really is coming from the political parties, and I would argue that the reason they don't want a cap is because it's easier to raise large amounts of money for political parties from a small number of donors than it is to try to raise it from hundreds of thousands of donors. So it suits them at the moment, but they are overlooking the fact that donors are buying influence, and that for the general public, for the man or woman in the street who doesn't have sort of £1 million or £5 million in their back pocket, they're not going to get that access. I mean, if they call their MP, they might well get, they should get an appointment, a Zoom call or something. But if they've just donated £1 million, they're going to be sitting around a table with that MP sometime fairly soon at a donor event where they will have the ear of that member of parliament or that minister, and that's got to stop.
Tom, it's wonderful to see you again. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Tom Brake there, Chief Executive of the cross-party pressure group Unlock Democracy and a former Lib Dem MP. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie, and coming up at midnight it's your chance to talk back. I want you to talk to me about Nigel Farage. Do you think this is a witch hunt? Do you think that he's being singled out? Do you think that the establishment is going after Nigel Farage? Or do you think that he should have declared this money, this support that he was getting from two different donors now, that they should have, he just needed to declare. That's all he had to do, was just declare it. But he didn't do that. So does that mean he just didn't think he should, didn't think he had to? Or was he hiding something? I mean, who knows, right? So I'd like to hear from you. Do you think this is unfair to Farage? Do you really honestly believe that nobody else would have been questioned in this way? So give me a call about this, 03444 499 1000, and text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Well, the 2026 World Cup is well and truly in full swing. We're going to be talking about that red card decision in a few moments, but we're marking a massive month of football in style here on Talk. How would you feel about pocketing an amazing £26,000 completely tax-free? Just picture that heading straight into your bank account. You could pay some mortgage off, take a proper holiday. It's a good chunk of money, that. If your balance needs a serious lift this summer, here's everything you need to know.
For your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 8338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or send your name and number by post to Comp 1, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 8338 now. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, you're with Talk and with Petrie. Well, a major controversy has erupted following FIFA's unprecedented decision to overturn US striker Folarin Balogun's automatic one-match suspension. Balogun, who received a red card, was freed to play against Belgium. That's at 1 o'clock, isn't it, our time? After Donald Trump confirmed he personally intervened, urging FIFA President Gianni Infantino to review the ban to avoid a big stain on the tournament. Now, the ruling sparked immense fury across Europe. UEFA fiercely condemned the reinstatement, calling it incomprehensible and unjustifiable, whilst warning that the integrity of the game is at stake. Belgium has since appealed the highly controversial decision ahead of their crucial match, but it has not been upheld. So, he is to play on. Balogun will now play at 1 o'clock against Belgium. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Steve Forbes, sports journalist in North America. Thank you for joining me, Steve. This has set a precedent now, hasn't it? I mean, why wouldn't England now consider the red cards that Kwanzaa got? I mean, I would, on principle, challenge that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're within their rights to do so now. Thomas Tuchel said after that win over Mexico that where does this stop? Do we start challenging yellows given out? If you receive a yellow in the next round, that then leads to a suspension. It is a bit ridiculous, really, but we have seen FIFA take this kind of action previously. Cristiano Ronaldo received a red card against Ireland in Portugal's qualifier in November last year. That was for violent conduct, which came with a 3-match ban. However, he was able, which would have meant, by the way, he would have missed the first 2 games of Portugal's campaign in this World Cup. However, he served a one-match ban against Armenia in their final qualifier before having his 2 remaining games of suspension suspended for 12 months, meaning he was then able to play the first 2 games for Portugal in this World Cup. So FIFA have kind of done something like this before. I've never seen it happen mid-tournament. I think certainly when you receive a red card in the round of 32, that obviously leads to a 1-match suspension. Following Balogun would have missed the game against Belgium. And it seems to be that Donald Trump, who many have criticised, he doesn't really even understand the rules of football, gave a phone call to his mate Gianni Infantino and subsequently got his way. So the US's star striker can play again. But it really is an odd one. And I suppose if you are the FA, who are now going to consider appealing Gerald Kwanzaa's red card against Mexico, they'd be pretty confident that it's going to get overturned. However, in saying that, looking at both of the challenges, the one that Balogun committed against the player from Bosnia and Herzegovina, he's not looking at the ball. He's not looking at the player. His eyes are fixed on the ball, and it really is accidental. It's really harsh. I don't know how anyone can look at that and think he's trying to do that player any injury. Whereas Kwanzaa's, he goes over the top of the ball in the challenge. You can say it's a little bit reckless. Less grounds maybe to have that one overturned. But if you're the FA, and this is an important player for England, they are really struggling with defensive reinforcements at the moment. You're going to be putting your best case forward to have this one overturned for sure, Petrie.
I mean, looking at that picture, I don't know. I mean, my son played rugby, so I was much more aware of rugby rules. But the rules are the rules. And I mean, that looks like a career ender to me if that had gone slightly wrong for the player that's being stomped on. Whether deliberate or not, these cards are supposed to mean something, right? They are, I don't suppose many people deliberately set out to injure, but if they're reckless, like you said, or they do something stupid, then a red card is a red card, a yellow card is a yellow card. What happens if people just go, well, it doesn't really mean anything?
Well, I mean, yeah, there are laws in place that if a challenge would be deemed a yellow, a challenge would be deemed a red. If the referee misses it, it can be reassessed by VAR. There's obviously a lot of controversy around that as well. With this one, he's not really making a challenge. He's simply trying to fight for the ball and accidentally steps on the Bosnia player's ankle. I think when you freeze frame it, when you look at it in slow motion, it looks a lot worse than it is. We see accidents happen, innocuous challenges happen all over the pitch in multiple games across history, and players end up on the wrong side of that and injured. This one, I think, looks a little bit worse than it is. And when the referee was sent to the monitor, and you are looking at multiple replays that are slowed down, you're getting freeze frames from the VAR officials, it just looks worse than it is. And I think when you then assess the controversy of the political intervention, when Donald Trump gave his speech at the White House saying that he didn't even understand that a red card led to a suspension, I think that calls a bigger question into play here, and really, this is a poor look for FIFA. This is really bad optics for the game's governing body.
I was listening earlier on to some of my colleagues at talkSPORT saying that Infantino has to go. that he, he has sort of toxified this entire tournament. The whole situation of him sucking up to Donald Trump, giving him the FIFA Peace Prize, giving him a copy of the World Cup trophy, all of these things means that he's not fit to be in charge of this organisation. This would play into that, wouldn't it? I mean, I've just been talking about undue influence in politics, but this is undue influence in football, surely.
Well, I think when you've got former FIFA president Sepp Blatter coming out and criticising you, you know you've done something wrong. Ever since the USA, Canada and Mexico were awarded this tournament in 2018, Gianni Infantino and Donald Trump have seemed to be the best of buddies, as you mentioned, getting this FIFA Peace Prize, also handing out the trophy for the FIFA Club World Cup, getting in all the photos for that. I'm sure he's probably going to try and hand out the World Cup to the eventual winner of this tournament.
Yeah, apparently they're doing it together, him and Trump,
be in every photo as well. And Trump's had his name all over this tournament for the last however many years. He says he's the reason why America and Canada and the USA got the tournament. It was all down to him. Biden was sleeping. He also took massive adulation for bringing the Olympics as well to LA in a couple of years too. So he really wants to be known as the person who championed this tournament. And when he's had such an influence and been, I suppose, at the front of many people's minds and been in almost every picture surrounding the tournament, when a big controversy like this happens on the pitch and he gets involved and he says he's asked FIFA to review it and then subsequently gets his way, I mean, it really, really doesn't look good. UEFA have criticised it. You talked about Thomas Tuchel saying, where does this end? Belgium are furious. They might go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport if they indeed lose this game, because USA would have essentially fielded an ineligible player, according to them. It's so messy, Petrie. It really is.
Yeah, I was just going to come to that, Steve, is that this game that's happening at 1 o'clock UK time, if the US wins because of a goal from Balogun against Belgium, then there's going to be a massive furore, surely.
Yeah, of course. Probably rightly so if you're a Belgian fan or a Belgian player. They weren't allowed essentially to appeal. They had it rejected. FIFA said that they were not party to the process because Balogun was sent off against Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Belgium are just essentially the next opponent, so had no real say in the matter, which Belgium obviously disagree with. So if Balogun plays, which it looks like he will, this game's hours away, really, so I don't see a reversal of this decision. FIFA have essentially doubled down anyway in the last day or so. And he scores and Belgium exit the competition. It's certainly not the end we'll hear of this.
Oh, God, no, absolutely not. And I don't blame them either, because I'd be exactly the same. Just quickly before I let you go, I'm aware that I have to let you go, Steve. But the front page of The Independent, in fact, a lot of the papers are covering this. This will be a big story tomorrow, I think. Starmer intervened to stop FIFA changing England's kickoff. So, we've got our own politicians getting involved as well. This was because it looked like that the Mexico game was going to be played a little bit earlier because of the weather. But Keir Starmer apparently got involved to say, no, it mustn't be made earlier because the team needed to re-acclimatise to the thinner air in Mexico. What do you make of that?
Well, I think there was a big deal made about having pubs having their licences extended a bit as well. Maybe he didn't want that to be backtracked upon. Yeah, I saw the weather in Mexico. I had a couple of friends that were over there and they sent me pictures of around the stadium outside. Rivers were flowing along the streets, really. It was torrential. And I think that, the main justification for potentially changing the time would have been those electrical thunderstorms, severe flooding, etc. So it was really for the safety of those playing and spectating. It didn't happen in the end. The game was delayed by an hour because of the weather in Mexico City. it's comparing apples and oranges really here. I think you've got maybe a politician concerned more for supporters watching, or for indeed the fans supporting England at the World Cup, and then you have another politician getting involved in actions that happen on the pitch. So two very different things. Definitely comparing two things here, Petrie.
It's going to be fascinating, Steve, how this literally plays out. Steve, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Steve Forbes there, sport journalist in North America. Just for a quick straw poll from you. What do you make of this red card situation? Now, luckily, it's not our game, but can you imagine if it was? And the whole idea that if he scores against Belgium, and Belgium is out of the tournament because of Balogun, or even if he just sets up a goal, right? I mean, he doesn't even have to be the one to score it. But do you think it's unfair? Do you think it's fair? I mean, it just seems to me to be ridiculous. Why have a red card system that you know, the team didn't even complain about this. The US team didn't even ask for a review. Bosnia and Herzegovina didn't. I mean, they wouldn't, I suppose, but they didn't say anything either. So. I'd just be interested to know if you think that this is just ridiculous of Donald Trump to get involved. Or I mean, look, it is Gianni Infantino, really. He should have said that, keep your nose out. But, of course, he wasn't going to say that, was he? But just how much influence did that phone call make on FIFA going back on their decision to suspend Balogun from the next game? I mean, that's a question, isn't it, that I don't know whether we'll ever get the answer to. But it would be fascinating to know just how much influence that phone call had on Infantino to then put pressure on other people to suspend that ban, that one-match ban, for another year. I wonder if we'll ever find out the answer to that. Send me a message on that. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. I've always just thought that the rules are the rules, and the rules matter when you're playing a game. I don't think the rules necessarily matter so much if you're playing like life, but when you're playing a game, that's the only thing that separates it from anarchy, isn't it? The rules of the game. You get a red card, you get a red card. It's simple as that. Right, I'm going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be discussing this new fat pill. Not the pill is not fat, but it's to help people lose weight. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you. Just a reminder that coming up at the top of the hour is Amy Fisher. She's going to be here to go through the story of the day and, of course, through the newspapers as well. In the meantime, chemists are braced for one of the biggest drug launches in history. with Britain's first daily weight loss pill going on sale as millions prepare for their summer holidays. From Monday, from today, the first daily GLP-1 weight loss pill will go on sale in the UK, with pharmacies, supermarkets and online providers reporting extraordinary demand for the £3 a day pills. And before they were even available, there are waiting lists at some of these places. 60,000 Simple Online Pharmacy said more than 60,000 people had already joined its waiting list before launch, with 10,000 approved and prescribed, ready for dispatch next week. Now, we've all heard about the injections that have been available, the weight loss injections have been available, but a lot of people objected to needles. They didn't like needles, they didn't want to take needles. They felt that once it was, in and they had any side effects, that they couldn't get it out of their body. I suppose at least with a pill, there's a little bit more control, isn't there, about how you take it, when you take it, and if you take it. And if it doesn't suit you, you just stop and it's gone out of your system. But there are concerns because of these pills that there will be people who are, like the jabs, buying fakes. This is a big concern to pharmacists across the country. Medication, of course, works by mimicking natural hormones to regulate appetite and reduce food cravings. It's not yet been cleared by NICE for the NHS, but since the injections have been, it seems likely that that will be the next step for these weight loss pills. Well, to discuss this further with me is Thoran Govind, who is a pharmacist and former chair of the Royal Pharmaceutical Society. Thoran, it's good to see you again.
Yes, lovely to join you. I mean, this is fantastic for people who don't tolerate injections, who don't like the idea of having an injection. But this is going to be a once daily pill. And my concern is, as a healthcare professional, that this is actually going to be easier for criminals to copy and to then make available via illicit means. That is a concern, because we know that vulnerable people are trying to access this as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? With these injections, for forgeries, for the fakers, it was quite an expensive thing to make look authentic, right? You had to have the injectable pen, you had to have that technology. But still, they were making lots of money out of it, and some people, sadly, have become very ill or even died using them. But the pills are much easier and much quicker, right? Just get a pill machine and that you're on your way.
Yes. Now, how they do that is either the main ingredient is changed or partly changed, or it might be that the actual ingredient is there, but the other items which effectively package the pill to be in its pill form may be swapped. And that is the concern. So that's why it's very important that we're saying to people, number one, only get these from a regulated prescriber. So you can check that prescriber, who will be named and have a number next to their name, find out who they are, check the registers, so the General Medical Council, the General Pharmaceutical Council, the NMC, for nurses, for example, the prescribers. But then in terms of the pharmacy that you're accessing them from, make sure that they are registered with the General Pharmaceutical Council. Don't be afraid of asking questions. It should very much be a conversation, and you shouldn't feel fobbed off at all.
The problem is, isn't it, is that these things will be quite expensive. It appears that they're not going to be much less expensive, although I kind of don't understand why, for all the reasons we've talked about, than the injectors, right? They're looking at £100 a month, up to £200 a month. And there's a lot of people who are desperate to lose weight, who can't yet get prescribed on the NHS, and they're not going to be able to afford to pay that sort of money. So if they see it cheaper, or they think they see it cheaper, there's going to be those people who opt for that dangerous choice.
Absolutely. We know at the moment that the NHS is unable to cater for everyone. Most people are accessing these jabs, injections, privately. It does come at a cost. When the pills came out for this in America, it was about £110, the equivalent in dollars. So I do think this is a concern, but what I would say, and what I'm also concerned about, is we're seeing prescription only medication, which this is, advertised very freely out there, often on social media as well. It is illegal to advertise prescription only medicine to the public.
Wow. So, but they're not being clamped down on at all.
Well, the Advertising Standards Agency and the Medicines Health and Regulatory Agency are looking at this. I think the problem is the pace that this is happening just cannot keep up with the regulation, and this has always been a challenge. My plea to people out there is, this is a regulated item. This is not like buying a loaf of bread at your local supermarket. And there are very much reasons why you need to have a consultation and to be monitored whilst you are using these. And it's also increasing the physical exercise and decreasing the calories. It's a holistic approach. It's not a miracle pill.
A lot of people, though, are concerned that this is creating a two-tier world. Because it has been long since agreed that weight loss is a great way to help very many diseases, a lot of comorbidities, a lot of things like cancer, a lot of things like heart disease, diabetes type 2. A lot of things can help the NHS if everybody was to be thinner. But this marketplace that's in at the moment, it seems to highlight just how unfair a two-tier system can be, that somebody who can afford it can lose the weight and be healthy, and somebody who can't afford it can't lose the weight and can't be healthy. And a lot of people would be asking the question, well, surely that's what the NHS was for. There wasn't meant to be this sort of unfairness that has been created in this weight loss market.
I mean, in terms of these pills at the moment, they are going through evaluation by NICE. They look at cost effectiveness, and they will look at the clinical trials. There has been a move very recently, actually, to try and streamline that process, and that should be getting a bit better. But it can take time, and I do feel for patients when it comes to this. And we have these conversations in the pharmacy, pretty much every day in terms of medications, because people may not qualify for free prescriptions because they may just be earning just below what's adequate to be able to access that. So this is a real problem across the country.
So tell us, these pills, from what I've been reading, they're not actually, don't seem to be quite as convenient in a way as the jabs. So there are some caveats, aren't there, with this that seem to be, that I think would put me off.
Okay, well, just think about the injection. You've got to get that stored between 2 and 8 degrees. I know we've been keeping an eye on our pharmacy fridges through this heat wave, and no doubt patients who are on them will also been keeping an eye. But in terms of these pills, you have to have fasted for 8 hours. You then have it with a sip of water. You then cannot eat or drink for 30 minutes after. It's not as simple as just popping a pill and getting on with your day. It does involve some thought about it.
So, I mean, I guess a lot of people say, well, I'll just do that when I wake up. But then you can't have your coffee or your breakfast for 30 minutes.
Yes, exactly. Look, with all medication, it's not just as simple as going, just take this medication. I always encourage people to think about having a look at that patient information leaflet, which comes with all medications, and that can really remind people. We know that when there's more barriers to taking something, people may then forget to take it. So that may be a challenge as well. So some people may actually prefer the injections as a once weekly item because it's less of an inconvenience, actually.
So if there's people listening right now who are thinking, I'd really like to give this a go, not just to get Bikini Beach ready, because they wouldn't qualify for this drug, but that there are people there who said, I didn't want the injection, but I'm really excited about this possibility. I feel like I'll have more control over it rather than injecting once a week. What would your advice be to them now at this point?
Okay, so this is a prescription-only medication, which is not suitable for everyone. You need to have an individual evaluation with a healthcare professional, your prescriber. They need to understand how you live your lifestyle and what's going to be best for you. But my genuine top tip is have a think through your day. write down for a couple of days how often you exercise, what you're eating, what exactly you're eating. You know, chocolate bars not going to have the same nutritional value as, you know, something that's protein, for example. You're not going to feel as full, for example, with that. So have a little write down of your week, and that means you can go to your healthcare professional fully, you know, with the facts as to how things are going for you, and also recognise that, again, there are criteria for accessing these. So a BMI of 30 or a BMI of 27 with a related comorbidity, as we call them, so something like diabetes or a related obesity factor.
So can for example, somebody just go into their pharmacy and ask for an appointment with a pharmacist, or does it have to be through their GP?
So it has to be through a prescriber. So if that pharmacy has a prescriber that's accessible, there is a means of providing it via that pathway. But it does need so it's someone separate to the process of dispensing. So when you walk into that pharmacy, it's not going to be on display for you to pick up and take away with you. No.
But have you got hope for these drugs? Do you think they're a real advancement in battling obesity? Do you think that on the whole they're a good thing?
Well, I think the amount of effort that goes into developing drugs, you know, is extensive. I do think they are a positive step forward, but we are in the early stages with these drugs. We're still getting that long-term data, which is exactly why you need to be reporting any side effects so that we can then fill in what's called a yellow card scheme. So all over the country, in fact, globally, we are then getting the feedback to feed this back, you know, for the national and global efforts as to what actually happens with these drugs long term.
It's good to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed. Taran Govind there, who's a pharmacist and former chair of the Royal Pharmaceutical Society. Right, just a reminder what's coming up at 12 o'clock. I want to talk to you about Nigel Farage, and do you think that he's being picked on by the establishment, or do you think it's only fair that he is probed about where the money comes from and what it's for? So that's coming up at midnight, but right now, of course, we have Amy Fisher. She's going to be in the studio going through the papers for tomorrow, as well as answering a couple more questions.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And coming up at midnight, your chance to talk back. And I do want to hear from you about Nigel Farage. I want to hear whether you think that this is an attack on Nigel Farage, as a witch hunt on Nigel Farage, and these monies that he has been donated. Of course, we've had the 5 million, which is being investigated at the moment, or certainly looked into by parliamentary standards. And now we've heard about Gorgeous George, George Cottrell, who has been inside Nigel Farage's circle for quite some years now, and they're very close. In fact, reporting suggests that George calls him Daddy. But they are very close, and he helped him out. He got him some staff, he paid for them, he paid their wages, and they were working towards, it was on social media mostly, paying towards Nigel Farage to make him more, to turn him from just the Brexit guy into something more. That was the plan. And so they did, and they did a really successful online sales pitch for Nigel Farage. And there's this guy, George, has been supporting Nigel, giving him money for all sorts of things. The security was mentioned as one of them, although so did the 5 million. That was supposed to go for security. I was saying that in the newsroom that he should have a battalion around him for all of that security money. But anyway, questions are now being asked about this money, and was there expected to be any influence on Nigel Farage from that money? And when I was talking to Tom Brake earlier, the point that he made is that it doesn't even have to be big influence, it just gives you access to that MP or that minister in that case. It gives you access to be able to talk to them over drinks or over some donor's lunch or dinner. It gives you access to be able to say, like if I had access to my local MP and I was having a problem with the council or whatever, and I knew that I could just, the trouble is with Andy Slaughter, he's just so clean that he wouldn't take my call. But he's a really decent guy. But he wouldn't allow me that influence because he's a decent guy. But if there was to be some influence and I knew these people, then I could just make a phone call, couldn't I, and get my problems dealt with quicker, earlier, sooner, better. That's the sort of influence that is unfair. So is there unfair influence that comes with huge donations? You can argue if it is required or if it's wanted. Yes, there's easier access to that person if you are donating money to them. And what we've seen with American politics, and don't forget we usually follow on quite quickly from America, is we've seen donations being made to Trump and the Republicans that some people are suggesting have led to people being pardoned from prison sentences. So is that undue influence? I would argue if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck, right? I mean, you don't need much more than that. So do we want that sort of influence being allowed to happen to British politicians? And I would suggest we don't. It's not fair, it's not right, and it's not reasonable. So even if nothing else, if Nigel Farage has done nothing wrong apart from misread the rules or not quite understand the rules, it has put a spotlight on donors and on donations. And as Tom Brake was saying earlier on, he believes that there should be a cap on all donations, and so do I. Lots of other countries do it. Lots of other countries will involve themselves in getting lots and lots and lots of small donations to support political parties where nobody has undue influence, rather than looking at donors who just give you 5 million, 70 million, or whatever it is that they're prepared to give you. It doesn't feel reasonable to me that a man like Elon Musk, when he was talking about, he didn't do it, but because he wasn't allowed to do it as a foreign donor, when he was talking, because he didn't have a business in the UK, when he was talking about giving reform $70 million, that would have brought influence, right? Otherwise, why are you giving that sort of money? Now, it didn't happen. And he's since fallen out with Nigel Farage and is now looking at Mr. Lowe instead. But is it right that one person should be able, some trillionaire or some billionaire, should be able to donate vast sums of money to political parties and all the influence that that can buy them? Is that, even if they're not looking for, what are they giving it for then? There's no such thing as a free lunch. We all know that, right? So even if Nigel Farage has done nothing wrong, which he absolutely says he's done nothing wrong, the spotlight is now on these donors. Do you think it's right that people can just donate as much as they want to, whenever they want to? George Cotterell's mother has donated a vast amount of money to Nigel Farage now. Huge. I think it's £750,000. Should that be capped? Or do you... I don't see any argument for it not to be capped, to be perfectly honest with you. I really can't. It just means political parties will have to work harder to get donations from the rest of us. And, of course, they don't want to do that. Anyway. Give me a call on this. Do you think that it is right and proper that donors be capped so that there isn't that sort of influence? Do you think that Nigel Farage is being singled out for some kind of witch hunt on the monies that he has been given and support, you know, that have supported him? And do you think that actually it's a good thing that we know all about this now, so it can all be stopped? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Those calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Well, joining me now to discuss this and to go through the papers is Amy Fisher, former Director of Comms for the Conservative Party. It's a huge question, this is, isn't it? And I literally do not understand why we're in this situation in the first place. It seems to be utterly ridiculous that anyone can donate any amount of money.
There's sort of not that much question.
With no real questions.
Pretty opaque and all the rest of it. So, I mean, certainly with George Cotterell, who the Sunday Times had the big expose on this weekend, adding sort of another layer of murkiness to exactly how many hundreds of millions.
And he had a reform business card as well.
I mean, it's just all just very strange.
Yeah.
Like where is Nigel Farage getting all this money from? And then obviously, sort of Farage is still saying, well, I wasn't an MP, and so it's actually nothing to do with that. It's completely separate. But there is this whole sort of maximum politics that as soon as it's sort of Alistair Campbell thing. As soon as you're explaining, you're sort of losing. So all of these questions about who exactly is giving money to Nigel Farage for what purpose and when. I mean, he's been on a bit of a sticky, Mr. Farage has been on a bit of a sticky wicket about this for a couple of weeks now. And it's not going away.
No.
It's getting worse. And then, as you've just said, extends actually far wider. Then I do think there are some serious questions that Nigel Farage does need to answer about these two individuals. And by the way, when you said that George Cotterell had been inside Nigel Farage's camp, I thought there was another way that sentence was going to end, because George Cotterell has a sort of rather, he has issues in the US and spent time in a federal institution.
He was in jail for 8 months.
Federal institution, and is seeking a pardon.
Yeah, he wants a pardon from Trump now, so he can go back to the US.
So exactly, so he can go back there and sort of continue one of the maybe his sort of business interest there. But I mean, so that's the sort of Nigel Farage issue, which isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And actually, I think you can see that Mr. Farage is getting increasingly rattled every time he's interviewed about this. And usually, you and I have sort of discussed before that he does have a sort of usual communication style.
He's bombastic. He's very
there's a bit of
positive,
and very clear charisma about it. And no, you can very much see that these accusations have gone under his bonnet, and he's not happy with how he's being presented and all this. But yes, the wider questions. I mean, for as long as ever I've worked in and around politics, which is sort of the best part of 25 years. I mean, look, if we remember back to what the expenses scandal, which I'm going to go back to, what, 2008?
Yeah, it must be by now, but that was just amazing, wasn't it?
Oh, it was absolutely insane.
The Telegraph.
Telegraph. I remember at the time, a very senior lobby journalist telling me that actually the discs where all of this detail of who's exactly spending what on heating their stables or like building a duck pond or whatever it was, that actually that disc had been going around for months and months and months, and no one could quite understand exactly what it was that they were looking at until a couple of very clever people at the Telegraph were suddenly like, oh my goodness. So, within my political career, that was the first time there was a really big explosion of what is this money awash around Westminster and who's claiming for what and where is the transparency and exactly, sort of what MPs are doing and all the rest of it. And then periodically there are always these sort of funding scandals. I mean, I had the not very nice pleasure of being Director of Communications, actually, when a big sort of scandal about exactly where Conservative Party campaign funding had come from. And so periodically every political party has these, but nothing seems to have really changed that much. By which I mean, OK, yes, I started talking about nigh on 20 years ago the expenses scandal and what MPs were claiming. Now, all of those rules have been tightened up there. But, oh, now, look, if we go and shine a spotlight over here, there seems to be another kind of grotty way that money and its tentacles and who's actually giving what, where and to whom is just sort of muddying, again, the whole sort of SW1 political pot. And, I mean, it's really frightening. It's really frightening when you think about it, that we don't really know who's giving what money to where, and it's not necessarily, as you've said, to affect some big sort of policy change or have some bit of legislation. It's more just the whispering and the access and the channels of communication and all of these sort of manipulation and sort of soft underpinnings of it all, as opposed to being a big sort of flash brand U-turn on a particular policy. And that's for me, that's actually the frightening aspect about it, which is how easily manipulated and malleable I think a lot of people, all the opportunities for doing so in Westminster are. And I'm not just saying MPs. I always find it absolutely bonkers, actually. Sort of staffers and researchers and people who work, in and around MPs' offices. Because, yes, OK, I mean, quite recently we have had a sort of Chinese spy type. You remember a couple of months ago, sort of one of the Welsh MPs. But
they look at the power that Morgan McSweeney had over Keir Starmer.
But it's so basic that I could literally name now the pubs that say staff from the Treasury go to, and they're not actually the super obvious ones. I mean, everyone knows the two chairmen. It's literally the pub physically close to the Treasury, which is always Heathrow. But I'm not actually talking about that one. But I could name you, where all the Treasury staff go, where all the Home Office staff go, where all the DFT, Department for Transport staff go. Now, DFT may not sound particularly sexy, but actually things that get done there of infrastructure projects involve, millions of pounds of money and kind of. So all I'm saying is, I just don't think it would be that difficult to wander around Westminster of an evening, overhear half a dozen conversations, and suddenly you're in possession of, well, in some cases, domestic national security, or at the very least, business-sensitive information. And that's just how loose it all is, and it's really not that hard to figure it out. As I say, if you want to tap into any of these channels of, just information, opportunity to kind of manipulate people or manipulate events, Westminster is an open house.
It is worrying, isn't it? I don't know. I just think that, like you said, everything has now got to be. They've got to do all of it. They've done the lobbying people, not as much as I think they should, the lobbyists, but also now it's got to be the donors. The whole lot needs to be cleaned up. Listen, give me a call. Is this unfair on Farage, or do you think that it is only right and proper that we know why money is gifted to any MP? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie, and with me is Amy Fisher, former Director of Comms for the Conservative Party. Let's have a look at the Times, shall we? Harry misses deadline to accept a berth at Buckingham Palace. I do not
I
care.
so don't either.
And
I did such a weary intake of breath as you started reading the sentence.
I don't care. I'm not interested. He hasn't brought Meghan and the kids because they couldn't get state-funded security. Blah, don't care. And this whole thing today, when I opened up, when I get up in the morning and look at all the press and look at all my apps and things like that to decide what to do on this programme, there was some people saying, yes, he's staying at Buck House, and then others going, no, he's not staying at Buck House, and yes, and then no, and then yes, and then no, and ooh, and I just thought, why?
No, I know.
Why?
I had the same reaction. Oh, gosh, and it all sort of goes back to there was some kind of deadline that Buckingham Palace needed to know by
they had to get the
they could make sure there was staffing,
the bed had been
catering,
changed,
all this kind of stuff. Exactly. He's making it sound like a sort of B&B in North Wales.
Yeah.
Sorry, nothing against North Wales, but I just mean it making it sound like a sort of slightly random
I'm sure
B&B.
that they've got enough bedrooms
not
that one bed
literally,
is made up.
Buckingham Palace. But then it's just, as ever, it just, on some level, feels like another sort of self-inflicted, pure PR disaster by Harry and Meghan. Sort of, this formal deadline by Friday, they were meant to have told Buckingham Palace where they did want to stay there, and then that sort of deadline passed, and then there was briefing sort of Monday morning from Harry's camp that he was going to stay, and then Buckingham Palace was sort of like, we don't really know what's going on, and so just this sort of flim-flammy, flip-floppy, aroundy, just sort of make up your mind, because most of the country doesn't care one way or the other. So you're just taking another sort of... I mean, as I say with them, when they left and relocated to the States, what is it, four years ago now, I think it is? 4 or 5 years? Then just since then, every time they sort of... I don't know, do they think they're trying to have some kind of rehabilitative effect in the sort of British press and the minds of the British public, but it just seems to be sort of death by 1,000 cuts. They just don't do anything right. Everything they do is so tin-eared and so out of touch that, yes, I think the vast majority of people like you and me are just like,
I literally
really don't.
I don't care where Harry's staying.
I wish you no ill, of course.
No, I don't at all.
But I don't care. And then in the sort of litany of the other issues that obviously the royal family has at the moment with, former Prince Andrew, just, this lot are, of course, in no way as dangerous to the royal family's reputation as former Prince Andrew. But it's equally not doing them any favours that this kind of whiny guy and his sort of rather grasping seeming wife just again keep just kind of catastrophically misstepping in a way that the vast majority of people just don't care
it's
about
almost
anyway.
like that they said, look, because you're not going to give us that pay for our security, you can't see her or the children.
That's exactly what it was.
And it's like a threat. And I'm like, I don't know how much we care. It's using the children, it's using
the grandchildren as sort of, not sort of, as some kind of leverage, right?
Yeah. But on the British public as well, it's just kind of like, well, first of all, that's not our decision. We haven't decided. But I would be pretty annoyed if I was paying for your security, frankly, because you can pay for your own. Of course, Harry's over here because there will be the judgment.
The review of the Ravag decision, right?
The decision for the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday. Times understands that Harry is also specifically asked to stay at the palace tonight on that Tuesday night, on the day of judgment in his case against the Associated Newspapers, and he's planning a victory speech.
Oh, it's insane.
After the
literally
judgment.
that in the copy of the Times, there's going to be some kind of victory. Again, it's a tin-eared. What on earth are you? Do you think people care? And insofar as anybody would notice this sort of judgment and whichever way it's going to go, do you think anybody wants to hear a victory speech from you? Do you see it? I sort of just wonder what is going on in their PR team. And
that
is
thinks
it,
that they're more special than they are.
And is it that they have a PR team that is either so inexperienced, or is it that their PR team is mainly American? And I don't mean anything pejorative about that. I just mean that my experience, say, for example, when I worked at Google, an American company, the way Americans do approach sort of comms and public relations is actually markedly different. So is it a kind of American-sized approach, a lack of experience, or is it that their PR team is so cowed that when their PR team is saying, no, this isn't the right thing to do, that they either feel they can't say that or they're just not listened to? Because they say, you know, they must have some PR professionals within their camp. I mean, they must do.
They must do, but they have a habit of losing staff quite quickly.
They do have quite a quick turnover of staff. But as I say, from a purely comms point of view, it's quite baffling how all of this has played.
I agree. It's just
played out. But it's actually quite a straightforward issue. Is he going to stay at Buckingham Palace or is he not? If he's not, because the deadline has passed, why is your team then 36 hours later strongly saying that you are?
And also the whole idea of just come in, get the deliberation, and go home.
Yeah,
people would have a lot more respect for you in that.
And then the bolt-on bit of why he, well, I should imagine actually for him it is quite an important part, this whole bit about the sort of run-up to Invictus Games 2027, all of actually any of that admirable work, which is kind of the one bit...
incredible work, yeah.
Which is the one bit which I do believe Harry actually really cared about and was, you know, quite sad when the scaling back of his duties meant that he couldn't quite bring, you know, the gravitas of being a senior role to that. You know, anything about that serious work there has just been lost in this ridiculous tat-a-tat-tat of who said yes, no, blah, whatever, have the sheets been changed? You know, all of that serious stuff has just been completely lost in the sort of mire of accommodation arrangements.
It is such a shame because, like you said, it does take the shine off the whole thing. Right, another story on the front page. No need to seek work for 100,000 people with ADHD. More than 100,000 people with ADHD are being paid disability benefits without any requirement to look for work, an increase of 40%.
That's crazy, in 2 years.
Since Labour came to power. That is an extraordinary number of people. And there's a range on ADHD, right? I mean, there's quite a few people I know who've probably got ADHD, but they still manage to work, and they still manage. And then there's the other end of the scale where people won't be able to work, and I wonder if they're just signing everybody off rather than finding out where they are on the scale.
So, of course... And the article also then goes on to cite that to say that young people are citing ADHD, autism, depression, and anxiety as their main disabilities. All of those four reasons have increased since in the last couple of years. So I'm sort of, so I think there's a couple of problems in this. One is that I think people are sort of self-diagnosing as, oh, I am anxious,
therefore I have an anxiety disorder.
Yes, so it's not that it's actually a chronic and acute anxiety disorder. It's that, yes, you feel anxious because everybody does sometimes. You know, life isn't a bed of roses. And actually, so there's been a sort of a muddying of the water between actually what are chronic and acute conditions and actually times when people do just feel, you know, depressed,
overwhelmed,
down, overwhelmed, because I say life is not always a bed of roses. I mean, certainly with ADHD, interestingly, I've got a couple of friends in their sort of 40s are now having like late diagnoses, actually. So it's not just for younger people that this sort of ADHD is sort of creeping in as being the reasons behind things. So my worry with all of this, once we start applying blanket labels and a bar is not a robust medical assessment, that, as I say, we are finding people sort of self-diagnosing or putting labels on things which are actually just quite normal parts of the human condition. And if we're getting into a world where, as I say, those quite normal parts of the human condition, like sometimes feeling sad or sometimes feeling anxious or sometimes feeling overwhelmed, if we're getting to a stage at sort of labelling all of them as being medical conditions, then we're all going to have something, right?
Yeah.
and that's then neither helping people who do have the chronic and or acute bits of it.
Well, it waters it down,
also,
doesn't it, for
this is what
everybody
I mean.
else?
It's not helping anybody. So
it's like people who've had genuine depression are rightly annoyed when you say, "Oh, I'm a bit depressed." No, you're not.
So it's not helping anybody.
Yeah,
it's not helping people who have acute and chronic
thing.
conditions.
Yeah.
And actually, it's then not helping people who, yes, might be experience a period of being down, but it is being labelled in some form as depression, and therefore they're not being taught or learning for themselves any of the skills to actually cope with periods in your life where you aren't very happy about things because of having a bit of a hard time. But that's quite
But that's not
different.
medicalised, yeah.
That's quite different from, as I say, you know, a medical bar of depression. So no, this is, I mean, it's not. This story sadly sort of came as no surprise, but once again as a salutary reminder that we do have a big problem with, you know, ever-growing cohorts of younger people who are not going to be working, which
and
in
I
of
don't
itself
think they are
becomes...
taught that. I mean, because there's a whole generation, isn't there, that believe that I want it, therefore I should have it.
Yes.
And they're not being told by their parents that life isn't. You can't always be a winner. You don't always get a cup for everything. You don't get a prize for everything. Sometimes life is difficult, and so when it is difficult, they think, oh, it must be an illness.
Yes.
That I'm not coping. I mean, there's things
there's
like having a broken heart. For example.
There's something. It's not for me to work through the situation. Like, I don't like the situation around me, so therefore that's what needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So,
yes.
There's no comprehension of these are circumstances that need to be worked through, and I need to have the mechanisms and resilience, I think, is the word that you know I've been reaching for in this resilience to work through it. Is that no, it's all wrong, therefore something else has to change because I don't like it.
It's not me. It's the situation.
It's the situation.
Yeah.
Therefore, the situation has to change because I can't cope.
I don't know how we reverse that particular.
And then I think, as we've said before, I mean, the most dangerous thing about this is, you know, worklessness. You know, not having a job, not having a purpose, not having a routine in you know, life becomes as dangerous in and of itself. So it's almost a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah, exactly. I can't work because I feel anxious. I'm therefore, you know, don't have any structure, don't have any routine, don't know what it is that I'm aiming for as a sort of goal. Oh, I feel, you know, it all compounds each other, and that is a very frightening place where I was about to say where we're going to end up. It's not that we're there. This is happening, and the idea that these cases are up 40% in the last 2 years, I mean, that's an insane statistic.
Yeah, it really is absolutely wrong, isn't it, that this is happening? Because you can't look at the world and say that it's become 40% more.
In 2 years?
Yeah, in 2 years.
That's not a generational...
shift.
Shift, that's...
It's extraordinary. Right, before we talk about the red card, let's take a break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie, and with me is the fabulous Amy Fisher. She's here to go through the papers. And the red card fiasco, that's on the front of the Times, but I'm going to take it from the Telegraph because Jurgen Klopp, I love saying Jurgen Klopp, I don't know why, I always have, led an angry backlash against FIFA president Gianni Infantino, who faces calls to resign after overturning the suspension of a US footballer. Mr. Infantino, the most powerful figure in football, was engulfed in crisis after Donald Trump admitted lobbying him to overturn the dismissal of the US striker following Balogun, who is playing 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock in like an hour, exactly, in like
against
an hour
Belgium.
or so. Yeah.
And if the US wins because of him, wait for the...
This story is so Trumpianly brilliantly insane.
Brilliantly insane, yeah.
But you could never... So when I heard this was breaking, I was literally like, what?
Yeah.
Like, in what world has somebody conceived that this is how Trump is going to get involved in the World Cup? But not just sort of get involved, like throw a big old grenade into the middle of it. And of the many elements to it, as I say, you literally... I mean, I know people say it's about Trump the whole time, but you literally couldn't make this up.
No.
And then one of the sort of most insultingly baffling bits of it is that Donald Trump has freely said, I didn't know what the hell a red card was.
No, but he knows all about football, apparently.
And then the idea that he just...
He says, I'm good at this stuff.
I'm good at this stuff. I mean, what? What, Trump? Just like, it was that broad that I'm just good at this stuff. I mean, what are you talking about, man? And then, so the idea that he then thinks, oh, well, I'll just phone up. I mean, just to give my 2 cents worth, I wasn't saying that it, you know, I wasn't trying to overturn it. I just wanted
As if Trump is ever that subtle.
I just wanted to give that I thought it should be looked at again. That seems reasonable, doesn't it?
There's a quote here from Trump, says, I'm the one that got them to do it. I saw the play. I'm a person that loves sport. That wasn't a foul, but he didn't know what a red card was.
He didn't. He didn't
for.
think it was a foul, but then that's sort of a bit, you know, chicken and egg, which is you.
But it's
sort of have
Infantino, isn't it?
I mean, he's just.
Well, I mean, sucking up to Trump in the most obscene way, giving him the FIFA Peace Prize for goodness' sake.
I mean, that was just
cringy. But I mean, this is what we're talking about when it comes to influence, right? This is what I was talking about with Nigel Farage and the donors and all of that. It's that sort of influence. The fact that Donald Trump had had the phone number of Infantino and could phone him directly.
And probably didn't think twice.
No.
Probably just literally went, oh, yeah, I know a guy, I'll just phone him.
I'll phone him.
No, so look, and there's always debates about, you know, football, the beautiful game, and, you know, FIFA, it does get sort of mired in...
It's so political.
It's so political, but there is a quote sort of in the latter half of this Telegraph article, which sort of... it's from Mr. Bernstein, who sort of can't quite see who it is, but it says, it hits as one of the beauties of football, the worldwide application across the world of regulation and rules. I mean, that's it. So whatever FIFA and football is sort of mired in off-pitch and the politics of how things happen, when you do actually have, you know, the guys for 90 minutes on there actually playing, you know, there should be a purity about the application of the rules.
And there's no
and the fact that
the
rules are universal. And for those 90 minutes, when you've got the two sides on the pitch, you know, everything else can sort of disappear, and it's about the game that's being played there. And this is just a total subversion of it.
Well, the US team didn't ask for it because it's a red card, and they just went, oh, it's a red card.
The most insane bit about it is that, and then there's one guy, Trump, as I say, just when you think he couldn't sort of come up with any more bonkers ways to sort of baffle and unpleasantly surprise us, well, look, I mean, confronting all expectations again. I mean, very
well, no one will pay any attention to a red card from now on. They'll just go,
no,
we'll just
and
appeal it.
why should they? And this is
They
why I
should
mean
appeal
about,
it.
you know, this erosion of the rules. I say, whatever else goes on in the murky world of FIFA and, you know, football and big money and all the rest of it, when you've actually got, you know, the guys on the pitch playing, it's football, it's the universal rules, and this is just... run a coach and horses to do that in the worst possible way at the most high-profile moment. Yes, then the fact almost you can see the salt being rubbed into the wound that, you know, Belgium, kind of whatever happens in the game now, if the US get anywhere near winning in any way, and the chap who's had the red card overturned is on the pitch for 2 minutes or 20 or 90, it's just the most unbelievable uproar. I mean, we can literally see it arising before the match has even started.
Absolutely, it's going to be a fascinating game.
Let alone if he does actually sort of score or is instrumental, exactly, in some sort of goal. I mean, it's just extraordinary.
I mean, there's people who've been accusing America of cheating. I think Piers Morgan came out and said that America was cheating. It's
certainly not sportsmanlike, is it?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's supposed to be a sport, and there are rules, and that's the whole point of rules. And if you don't like them, you don't like the outcome, you don't like the yellow card, you don't like... There's always an argument, but you take it, and that's the way that it should be played.
Be in a world where where countries just start, you know, be it
getting their presidents to phone in.
Be it rugby or cricket or wherever, where just suddenly something doesn't quite go your way. So we're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Let's just rehash it this way around, because that's what, you know, Donald Trump, sort of feel like today, despite the fact I've admitted I don't really understand any of it.
He's frankly, I mean, he's claiming responsibility for it. Just how much he was involved, we don't know how much influence that he had, but it feels like it was certainly a lot.
It has a whiff about it. Let's just...
Yeah, it does have a whiff about it. And we already know how Infantino sucks up to Trump, so it's not beyond the realms, is it, really? Britain and Europe. Britain to lead European drive to build long-range NATO missiles. Britain will lead a European project to develop a new... Has anybody asked the new Prime Minister about this? Since you haven't got one yet. The Deep Precision Strike Coalition will be unveiled as one of the first major steps towards the creation of a European pillar of NATO.
OK, so this is...
we've got NATO...
Ankara, a couple of days.
Ankara tomorrow, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, for 2 days,
yes. Great, and all of the kind of messaging in this is obviously about, you know, a stronger Europe and stronger European alliances. Obviously, as Trump is doing, seems to be withdrawing from NATO, and then what that sort of means, particularly obviously for the war in Ukraine. I mean, the obvious question that occurs to anybody seeing this headline on the front page is, where's the money? I mean, we've had the last couple of weeks, alongside obviously Andy Burnham and his coronation, the other biggest sort of political story in town has been the defence investment plan and the kind of enormous gap between what monies, some billions, seem to be available, but which are still some billions short from what is apparently needed. So I understand the messaging and believe in the messaging around this story. I have a strong dose of sort of realism as to how any of it actually happens in terms of funding.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence. This has been announced just before Trump arrives.
Of course.
At Ankara, where he's expected to deflect from Iran by shouting at European NATO, his European NATO allies. Just some breaking news. Balogun has been named in the starting team for USA. Wow. So he is going to be playing against Belgium.
This is just all very awkward.
Orcs. So he has been named in the starting, to start the game.
Well, I think I know what I'll be doing when I leave here in a little bit, which is presumably not going to bed till about 4 a.m.
Not going to bed till 4, watching the game.
Yeah.
5 million students missold their loans. This could be quite pricey. Student loans were missold. If you remember the last stuff that was missold, everybody got PPI or something? They got their money back. MPs have concluded the Department for Education misleadingly likened the loan repayments to the monthly cost of a mobile phone contract and failed to explain that terms of the loan could be rewritten at any time, which is absolutely disgraceful anyway. No one would agree to that if they knew that was in the small print. According to the Treasury Select Committee, I wonder if they'll get their money back.
Well, I think this is going to run and run and run because
I think they should.
the amounts of money that
I
will
said
be
years ago
involved.
that student loans will be the new PPI. I said that years ago because there's no choice. If you want that loan, you can't just go to a bank and say, "Can I have that loan at a favourable interest rate?" There's only one place to get it, and I always thought that was really unfair. And everybody said to me, "No, no, no, it's different. It's different. It's different." I think the fact that it is a monopoly is wrong in the first place.
And the reality of this is that there will be any thousands of students who have already saddled themselves with these kind of insane costs that they never...
That they can rewrite at any point.
That they sort of never foresaw. And also at the same time, there are probably an awful lot of people who chose not to go to university and pursued that level of high education because they were so worried about the loan aspect of it. And so therefore, potentially, you know, people who would have wanted to go and continue didn't. So...
yeah, it's a mess. It's an
Not
absolute
good.
mess, and I think that all of those student loans should be annulled. The Daily Express: Harry turned away from the palace, and I think that the Telegraph is also suggesting that the King said he was lost patience with dithering. And said, no, you can't stay. So Prince Harry returned to the UK yesterday, despite being told he could not stay at Buckingham Palace as he had asked too late. His arrival followed chaotic war of words, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, again, still firmly in the box of I don't really care.
I don't really care.
Sorry, I can't summon up any more enthusiasm for that 20 minutes on than I could when you first brought it up.
No, I agree. I have literally no interest in that. Global outcry. This is the Eye as Trump forces fever to change Football World Cup rules to help the USA. Trump admits he intervened. I was a good athlete and I understand sports very well. That wasn't a foul. That's what he's saying. Never misses an opportunity to big himself up.
No, I know,
does
but
he?
was a good athlete, what, 50 years ago?
I mean, oh, God, 50. I mean, he's 80 now. Probably talking 70 years ago. UEFA claims that integrity of the game is at stake, and it is true. That is true. The Sun newspaper: King snaps at Harry. Charles's patience was tested beyond endurance because Harry didn't make a decision about staying at the palace.
This is okay. So the one bit I can sort of see in all of this is, you know, King Charles is in his later 70s. He has had, you know, various cancer health scares. You know, this is his son. So if actually King Charles, I kind of feel like, how disappointed and hurt must he be by his son? That's the sort of one bit where I have, you know, the human empathy reaction of, poor King Charles. And then all of it being played out on a sort of global stage, that is the bit I find a bit sad about.
Yeah, it is sad, actually. We do forget that they are people, right, as well. King snaps at Harry. Just an interesting side note before we go to the break. Did you see that Petrie Express had done a review of whether formerly known as Prince Andrew
had ever been there?
And they'd never found any evidence that he'd ever been.
Although, what was the review? How would Petrie Express...
I suppose they would have just asked the staff.
Yeah.
Did this guy come
Do you
in?
remember? Because I probably, you know, if you were doing an 8-hour shift that day, you would probably remember if that was a thing that happened.
And was there any security and things like that? But anyway, they did a formal review.
But that was always the point about it, because I think when ours, his security team couldn't even necessarily find the log of it. And certainly from obviously having worked for a Home Secretary, I mean, prop teams... Well, it's their literal job to take these things very seriously. So even back whenever, I always thought that's really odd that even a security from the props team, protection team, can't quite, or they've lost the logs, or they can't quite find the people who are on duty. That I always
I'm surprised it's not a bigger story. I just saw that as a little side story earlier on today, and I thought, well, I mean, I wasn't surprised.
I think again, is that maybe because we've reached saturation point of knowing what kind of grot this guy seems to have been involved in.
Yeah, true. Maybe that's the least of it.
That's an awful way to think about it, isn't it?
Yeah, horrible. Right, quick break, and Amy and I'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here, and with me is Amy Fisher, former Director of Comms for the Conservative Party. The Daily Star, Amy, red cards Prez after he gets US Star's red card suspended. I don't understand that. You're off, Don. Meddling sparks World Cup fiasco. And Trump there saying, I've played my trump card.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's pretty
I'm quite
good.
surprised nobody else sort of went for that one. To editorially, I think the Daily Star gets my vote for that one. But yeah, I mean, look, it's one of the two stories in town. The other one is also obviously on the left there about buck stops here with Prince Harry. So as we've seen, the papers are absolutely dominated on Tuesday morning by, firstly, Donald Trump's interfering in the World Cup in a way that I don't really think anyone had foreseen would happen. And then also, sort of a rather petulant Prince Harry not being allowed to stay at Buckingham Palace, sort of universally dominating the papers.
Really, really dominating.
Yeah.
And of course we've not really got a prime minister at the moment. So there's hardly any British politics, really, are there?
No,
we've got Keir Starmer obviously going off to be snubbed at NATO meetings tomorrow.
It's just sort of sad wave. Well, obviously he's been
that's
trying
going to be the headline.
He's been trying to sort of so Keir Starmer's been trying to kind of frame his departure, and obviously his sort of big interview he gave was sort of whoever takes over from me, Andy Burnham, is going to have to continue doing as much as I did on the world stage, which sort of...
And Andy Burnham's already said he doesn't want to do that.
Well, no, exactly. And also, it would be a pretty brave person... Well, it would be pretty brave for Andy Burnham to come in this kind of completely unknown, I'd sort of somewhat say unconstitutional coronation type way. I mean, a man who literally no one voted for because he wasn't an MP 2 years ago, and then for him to come in and kind of go, oh, yes, this domestic stuff, no, I'm off to the world stage.
Yeah.
I mean, of all the sort of policy priorities and narrative-setting agenda that Burnham's got in his place, I think decided to go down that route of, I'm going to focus, a lot on, continue in the form of Never Hear Keir's modus operandi. I mean, I think that would be one that shouldn't really get off the drawing board.
And he doesn't want to.
And he doesn't want to.
He doesn't want to move out of Manchester, let alone go overseas, it seems.
I am kind of really intrigued to see a first meeting between Andy Burnham and Donald Trump, though, because I'm just not quite sure how the Burnham... it's all about the buses, let's have a pint kind of vibe is going to go... I mean, I think he's just going to get steamrolled by Trump.
Or is he going to be able to stand up to Trump in an I don't care about you kind of way?
But I think, but isn't this the problem with Trump?
The problem with Andy Burnham is we don't know him.
Well, we don't know.
Yeah.
But isn't this one of the problems with Trump is no matter sort of what I might think of him personally and all that kind of thing, the issue is he is still the president of the United States.
And we've still got to suck up to him.
Exactly. There's just no way around that. So I just sort of wonder how Burnham's sort of just man of the people, I make the buses run on time, runs into sort of Trump's madness.
It's going to be literally, I'm not sure it's going to be fascinating in a good way.
No, I think it's going to be very much like, where's the popcorn? Oh, God, I can barely bring myself to
Yeah, it's going to be like
type.
how I used to watch Doctor Who from behind a pillar.
That kind of thing.
Behind a cushion. The Daily Mirror has gone foul. Trump, I did call FIFA chief over US, we know he did. And the photograph of that foul by Balogun.
That could be career. I mean, that looks like career. I mean,
I said a career-ending injury if that had snapped.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the. I mean, apparently it looks worse than it was.
It looks worse than maybe. I mean, it still doesn't look.
No. But yeah, so we know now that Balogun is in the starting squad for the game.
Okay, well, that's the immediate, as I say, that's the immediate popcorn moment when I get home and see what happens there.
That's it. The Guardian, look at a very happy England team there. Trump admits asking FIFA to review red card for USA. Intervention by President sparks anger before the Belgium match. Labour calls on Farage to clarify Cottrell links.
So just in the Guardian coverage of the red card Trump issue, in that sort of third column there, sources told the Guardian that Trump made 3 calls to FIFA. So that actually wasn't something I hadn't realised it was the more than I hadn't quite picked up from other coverage, that it wasn't just a once-off. Oh mate, can you have a look at this again? 3 calls. I mean, if the President of the United States, whoever it is, calls you 3 times, that probably is going to be something you have a little thought about, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
that's not a random one-off. You've got three phone calls from the most powerful man in the world.
The host of the whole FIFA World Cup this year. One of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be. I mean, it's Infantino should have stood up to him and said, "None of your business."
Of course he should have done. When I said the 3 phone calls he'll take notes of, well, that wasn't in any way a defence.
No,
I'm just saying the 3 phone calls to me would suggest some kind of concerted
effort by Trump. It wasn't just.
It wasn't a one-off, a random Trumpian.
Yeah,
I've picked up the phone.
Oh, I think you should look into this.
No,
it sounds like it was definitely more than that. 5 a.m. finish as fans toast England triumph. The yawning after the mighty roar. I don't know if Sam is still awake. Sam, who's the guy that presses all the buttons, he's still awake. He stayed up for it. So did Adam.
Well, I thought...
Did you, John? Oh, my God, I got 3 of them.
Around and about town today, I thought people seemed like... Well, obviously, because it was such a fantastic win, I thought people genuinely seemed less hungover and more sort of buoyed up by it, even if they had been up.
None of my team have had any sleep, which is great, isn't it?
Oh no, I think that shows commitment, exactly, both to you and the programme and also, the national patriotic team.
Right. Just one story, wasn't there, at the top of the Times, I think it was.
Oh no, I know you're going to bring this up, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Should men wear shorts to work? Front page of the Times. Should men wear shorts to work?
Shorts, OK, instinctively kind of no, but I find shorts in other sounds less offensive than when men get their, feet out in a flip-flop way in the office. So shorts basically with some kind of deck shoe loafer, I could or trainer, I could sort of just about live with. But as soon as you see, male toes
but there are some
in a workplace environment that just I find slightly upsetting.
There are some men that suit a short.
Yes.
And there are those that do not.
Yes.
And
I often don't know the difference.
It's those that don't. I mean, I'm going to say this. Peter Cardwell should not wear shorts.
I'm totally pleading the fifth on this.
It just looks wrong. It just looks wrong. It looks too flippant for Peter almost, whereas Sam wearing pink shorts really suits him.
You think you can kind of roll with that? So it's about the personal style that goes with it as well?
I think it's the personal style that goes with it, and I think it's the personality that goes with it.
No, but then I guess for Peter, given that,
he wears a suit at the top
but hasn't that always been the joke about sort of people on television, is that terribly smart and coiffured and immaculate on the top half, and then the bottom is...
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wearing scraggy old jeans.
I mean, like the way we all did during, COVID and Zoom, basically.
Yeah, true.
The sort of top half was, business professional. The bottom half was basically I'm sat there in my knickers on a conference call.
It just doesn't look right. I mean, I have an objection to short sleeve shirts unless they're t-shirts or
short sleeve shirts,
polo shirts.
But why?
Like a collared shirt with a short sleeve.
No, it's a little bit.
I don't like. That's not right. That's just not right. Roll a sleeve up. But don't have a short sleeve shirt.
Okay.
And Sam wore one of those to his wedding.
That's quite trendy.
Yeah, they are actually. Well, you're very trendsetter, Sam. But it looks like. I mean, you suit the shorts. Cardwell doesn't. It's just as simple as that. It's a style thing. Cardwell looks like he should be in a three-piece suit all the time.
Oh, at all times.
At all times, and
possibly
not
even whilst in bed
short.
with Jack the cat with like a cup of tea. Just still in the suit.
Just definitely a suit. Definitely a suit. Amy, thank you very much indeed for coming in and pleading the fifth on Peter Cardwell's shorts choice. Coming up, though, it is just you and me now, and we are going to be talking about Nigel Farage's financial choices and whether he should have declared them, or whether you think, actually, that this is nothing more than a witch hunt.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you for your Talk Back hour, and that's exactly what I want you to do right now about Nigel Farage, because there's more stories that are coming forward. Maybe this is the end of it, who knows, but now a convicted fraudster's support for the Reform UK leader has raised questions over declarations and Commons rules and could lead to sanctions. Now, we're unlikely to get any result to this until probably September. I think that was the last thing I heard. But I do want to talk to you about, this isn't so much just about, with Nigel Farage, about being donated the money. It's about not being upfront about the donation of these monies. So the 5 million, and then the George Cottrell support, which hasn't been mentioned really. And he's supposed to, 12 months, once you become an MP, you're supposed to backdate 12 months and highlight any gift over £300 or to the value of £300. So it might have been a holiday, or it might be, as we saw with Keir Starmer, sunglasses or a suit or things like that, and declare it. And that's how we found out about the monies that were given to Keir Starmer. So anything that you're given over the value of £300, unless it comes from a family member or a loved one, is considered to be potentially, could potentially be seen as a donation for favours, right? So that's why. So it's scrutinised. So you declare it. You say, I got this gift from this person. It's like if I was given a load of makeup, right, by Christian Dior, and then came on this show and started talking about Christian Dior makeup, you would then be able to link it and say, well, that's because you were given this gift by Dior. And we're not allowed to accept gifts as journalists in this building anyway, and in fact everywhere I've worked, of the value of more than £50, in case there is a suggestion that we could be swayed in some way to talk about these gifts, or to talk about how great, for example, Christian Dior is or isn't. Now, I haven't been gifted anything from anyone. So if I say that I like something, if I say that I use something, that's because I do. And it's not been a gift, it's something that I've paid for out of my own money. So that's always the point, isn't it? You wouldn't want your journalists to be accepting donations that they didn't declare, right? If I declared it, then you'd know where I was coming from. If I said, oh, by the way, I was given £5,000 worth of Christian Dior stuff, I don't know why I used that term, but that name anyway. But then said, oh, it's really good, you'd be able to say, well, that's, you'd know why I was saying it, right? There would be more of an open and an honest conversation in that, well, she's saying that, of course, because they gave her a £5,000 gift, right? And that would be more open and more honest. But with donors that you don't declare, there is always the fear, the concern that there is something else going on, and that perhaps they are getting favouritism in some regards, or direct, access to MPs or to the Bank of England or to whoever through that donation. And so that's the issue. It's not so much that he was given this money, it's the fact that it wasn't properly declared as him having been given it, and therefore it can't be scrutinised, it can't be questioned, and it can't be looked into as to whether it was for favours or not. So there is a question, though, that even if and Nigel Farage says he hasn't done anything wrong, he's completely not done anything wrong, but even saying that is true, there has to be questions raised about donors. And the fact that any one person can donate any amount of money to an MP, to a minister, is bizarre. I mean, as I was saying earlier, Elon Musk wanted to donate 70 million, it was either pounds or dollars, to reform at one point. Now, he was barred from doing so because he didn't have a business interest in, a business address or something like that in the UK. So recently, the rules have been changed for foreign donors to say that if you are a foreigner and you're not in the UK paying British taxes and blah, 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 you can't donate more than £100,000. And that seems reasonable. That would still buy some influence, of course, but it's not millions and millions and millions of pounds. But do you believe, as I do, that all donations should be capped, that individuals shouldn't be allowed to donate vast amounts of money? And I would even go so far as to say companies and unions shouldn't be allowed to donate vast amounts of money either. Although with the unions, it's fairly obvious, is it? I don't think there's anything under the table about it. But look, this has highlighted for me something that absolutely shouldn't be allowed to happen. It certainly happens in the US, and I don't think, even looking at US politics at the moment, that we want to be anywhere near that. So and there's been suggestions, hasn't there, with Donald Trump, that vast donations have led to pardons, people being pardoned for crimes in the US justice system. So, and that looks like it is because of those donations, that basically you could buy a pardon from the US government, which is entirely wrong on so many levels, because the law of the land is supposed to be equal to everybody. Access to your MP is supposed to be equal, whether that's equally you never get access or equally you always get access. But people shouldn't be able to buy that. That's what I'm saying, is that they shouldn't be able to buy that sort of influence. And I don't know whether you agree with that or not. I mean, maybe you don't think that, but I think other countries have managed to do it. We don't want taxpayers to fund these political parties, because frankly we can't afford it. But you know, if they worked harder at getting donations from individuals rather than from one individual who's going to give millions and millions of pounds, and potentially ask for favours along the way. I mean, we're always told there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? Why would anybody donate millions and millions or hundreds of thousands of pounds? Why? So that's the question that has to be asked and answered. But do you think that, as far as this goes with Nigel Farage, that there is a witch hunt, that it is unfair, that he has been singled out, that he is being questioned in a way that no other politician would be questioned or asked about, that no one else, you know, if Keir Starmer had got 5 million undeclared from a crypto billionaire, we would just leave that alone, that there wouldn't be any questions to answer? Do you genuinely believe that? Give me a call and let me know. Do you think that this is the establishment attacking reform, or do you think that there are questions to be answered? 0344 499 1000. Those calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you straight back. And text the word talk and give me your message to 87222. Well, Brian has called in this morning from Whitley Bay. Good morning, Brian.
Hi, Petrie. Good morning. Yeah, I mean, when I think about all this, I'm thinking back to the old days of cash for questions.
Yes.
And I really think that politicians, look at Keir Starmer, when he became Prime Minister, he got glasses and a suit. Why are these people taking things for free? Because it looks bad on them, do you know what I mean, when it gets in the press?
It does look bad. And these are the people who can mostly afford, like Angela Rayner got loads of free stuff and clothes and all that, and you think, well, you can afford it.
Well, absolutely. And another thing as well, these people are making decisions about other people's lives. And I hate it when people come in here, have a go at the genuine disabled people about benefits or cut the benefits. You know what I mean? It's the money that they get is absolutely, it's for essentials to get out. I mean, get support workers, carers, all that kind of thing. And like I say, if somebody gives a huge amount of money like Nigel Farage is being given, they're not going to give you that because they like you. They obviously probably want something back in return. Do you know what I mean? It's different if you give them a 20 quid note, or there's 20 quid note by Nigel. Do you know what I mean? But like, say, Daddy Nigel, as he's being called. Do you know what I mean?
That just makes me feel really kind of weird when a grown man calls another grown man daddy. I think that's just... it's like when Mark Rutte did that to Donald Trump. But yeah, I just think it's... But it does raise questions, doesn't it? It's the fact that he was given this money, but then the fact that it wasn't declared either. I mean, there was some of what George Cottrell gave Nigel Farage has been declared, but it was declared after the event. It was after questions were being asked about it.
Do you know what it is? If it was in the papers, sorry, Patrick, to talk over here, if it hadn't been exposed through the papers, we wouldn't have known anything. Nothing to say here. Do you know what I mean? It's just so, bizarre. And to be honest with you, Nigel never spends hardly any time in Clacton, where he's supposed to be the MP. I think people from Clacton should get rid of him. And I think, if this gets to a certain level, they could probably end up calling for a flipping by-election in that town and get rid of him.
They absolutely could, yeah. I mean, the rules are okay, so the Parliamentary Standards Committee look into this. This could include a suspension from the House of Commons. If this suspension is longer than 10 working days, then a recall petition is triggered. That means he's recalled to Parliament. This would give voters in Farage's Clacton constituency 6 weeks to sign a petition saying that they want Farage to lose his seat. So if more than 10% of voters in the constituency sign the petition, a by-election could be triggered. So there's quite a few stages to go through yet. But then you've got a situation, if a by-election is triggered and Farage loses his seat, let's just say that the people of Clacton decide that he's never there or whatever, or they don't love him and they want somebody else.
Yeah.
That means that come the next election, Nigel Farage couldn't be Prime Minister.
Good. So, I mean, I'll be honest with you, right? I listen to your show a lot and I hear a lot of people who are really struggling, ringing in, you know, they're worried about finances, they're worried about, you know, everybody's in that situation. And when you hear about people bunging huge piles of money over to an individual and they didn't want to make it public, you just kind of wonder, you know what I mean? It's just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean,
it just feels wrong, doesn't it? And also, I mean, how much money does Nigel Farage need to live on? I mean, there seems to be a lot of money, you know, given to him personally.
Yeah. On 100,000 a year, politicians, I don't know what they get. I'm just imagining it'll be like that. But
just under for an MP.
God,
a minister will get more.
Yeah, you know, when you're on £250 a week or whatever, you know, compared to that kind of money, that's, you know, it's incredible. You know, and I hear a lot of people ring up your station and, you know, a lot of people are in poverty and, you know, and they're struggling. And it must get their backs up when they hear, when people are handing huge amounts of money over, you're thinking, it's not because they're obviously like it. Why would they hand that kind of money over to somebody, like, you know, in the millions and stuff? It just makes me, like, wonder, you know, I don't know.
But, I mean, Brian, that's the whole point of the parliamentary system, right? That it's supposed to be declared so that it can be scrutinised. And Nigel Farage has always declared all of his other earnings outside of his government work. For example, we know that he gets paid a lot by a TV station. He got paid $270,000 for selling bullion or for talking about bullion. Fine, I don't have an issue with that. I literally don't care. Obviously, he's going to earn as much money as he can. That's entirely up to him. I have no jealousy and no issue with it. The only issue that I do have is when money is gifted and we don't know what it's for. That's when it crosses a line for me. If he wants to go and earn, you know, 22 grand a minute or an hour or whatever it was he was paid for, I don't have an issue with that. He can do that. That's between him and the people of Clacton, right? But when it's monies that are undeclared or they're big swatches of it, it just makes me wonder why. Like you, it's kind of like there's no such thing as a free lunch, right?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I did hear him actually on another station say, when he was interviewed by another you know, presenter, he told the guy to mind his own business when he was asked about it. I mean, I thought it was rather rude. I mean,
it is our business. It is our business. I'm afraid when you're a public...
That is absolutely true. He did say that because I've actually heard it in my own ear.
Yeah, no, I heard it as well. I heard it as well. And he's being very defensive about all of this. He's not handling himself very well in the interviews, it has to be said. You know, and even with one journalist, he said, well, what do you spend your wages on? And if I was her, I'd have come back and said, yeah, but those are my wages. You're telling me that you weren't paid. This was a gift. Yeah. So there's a difference in language.
Yeah. Do you know what I think, Petrie Hosken? If you become a politician, that should really be your main job, and, you know, to represent the people, to work, to do the best you can for the people who voted you in. You shouldn't have about 10 or 15 jobs. I think that doesn't make sense to me. Do you know what I mean? It just, you know, if you want to be a politician, be one. If you don't want to be a politician, don't do that job unless you've got other jobs behind you. I think you should focus on one job, look after the people who put you in that position, and do the best you can for that area. That's how it should work.
That's what it has been for years, actually, Brian. There's been the discussion: should MPs be allowed to have a second job? And for years and years, that debate has been raging. I mean, probably for as long as I've been a journalist, actually, that debate has been raging. And they're always saying, well, you don't pay us enough. And I think, well, just coming up to 100 grand, I think is pretty decent wage, actually, given that you are representing people, as you said, on £250 a week. The more you earn, the further you get away from the people you are supposed to be representing.
Lovely show, Petrie, and I always listen in, and thanks for having me on.
Hey, anytime, Brian, anytime. Thank you very much indeed. So what do you think? Do you think that this is a witch hunt against Nigel Farage specifically, or do you think actually there are questions to be answered? Do you think that for me, it's not so much, like I said, about the bullion, about earning that 270 grand or whatever. Good on him. Would I do the same if I could? Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't even have a problem with him being given £5 million. But I do have a problem if that is undeclared. I have a problem if that is not explained. That there's no connection between this crypto billionaire and Nigel Farage going to the Bank of England and trying to dissuade them from having their own cryptocurrency. So that's the sort of thing that it should worry all of us, that one person, just because they are loaded, can potentially influence our democracy. And that is not something that any of us should accept, especially if you look to see what's happening in the US, where it has been now there's a deep concern that you can buy a pardon. I mean, that is absolutely, if that is happening, and it will come out in the fullness of time as to whether it's happened or not, that would just be all kinds of wrong, right? So let me know. Do you think this is a witch hunt against Nigel Farage? Do you think it's unfair that people are looking into him in this way? Do you think it's the establishment trying to tear him down? And do you think that anybody else who'd done exactly the same thing would not have had the same scrutiny as Nigel Farage has had? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. We're talking about Nigel Farage. and whether he should have registered the benefits that he has received from George Cotterill and, of course, from Christopher Harborne. Now, Christopher Harborne, the cryptocurrency investor, gave a £5 million gift to Nigel Farage in early 2024. Harborne also gave £12 million to Reform last year, and Farage says that Harborne gave him the money to pay for his personal security, adding the gift was purely private and that it wasn't political in any sense at all. But do you think he should have declared it? Well, the rules suggest that any question at all as to whether he should or shouldn't, you should always err on the side of should. That's what the rules say. The only time that a gift, say Nigel Farage's wife bought him a £80,000 car, he wouldn't have to register that because that was from his partner, from his wife. And it wouldn't be seen as being influential on anything that Nigel Farage was doing in terms of his parliamentary work. So that is the difference. And whether you can accept that it was for his personal security. But since then, he's changed his mind on that, hasn't he? He hasn't said... Sometimes he says it's personal security. Other times he said he could have spent it on Ferraris if he wanted to. Other times it was just, for, as a thank you for getting Brexit done. He is all over the shop on this one. But the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards will look into the Harborne £5 million and now into whether Cotterill's support for Farage is something that should have been registered. That will now be looked into as well. So it's not the gift in itself, it's the lack of registering it so that it could be at least scrutinised, or it's on public record. All right, let's put it that way. So had the Harborne money been put on the declaration, then it means that it's open. Then we could see that if then Nigel Farage started to be overly supportive of cryptocurrency or was lobbying in a certain way for cryptocurrency, it's on public record that a crypto billionaire had given him £5 million. That's what it's about. And it relates back to what I was saying about if Christian Dior, other makeup brands do exist. I don't own any Christian Dior. I don't even know why I said that. It's more likely to be Boots in my case. But if in that case, I registered to you, I was given this gift by this makeup manufacturer, and by the way, it's the best makeup in the world, you could then reasonably question why I'm saying that. Do you see what I mean? So it's the fact that it's registered and can be scrutinised and can be looked at when I start talking about this particular brand of makeup, right? So if I was ever gifted anything and didn't declare it, and then started going, it's the best thing ever, then I'm being disingenuous with you. I'm not giving you the full picture. So this is about really just registering it, putting it out there, making sure that it's publicly known so that if there seemed to be any favouritism being played, that we would know about it. And I think that's the point of this. It's not so much the gift itself, it's the fact that it wasn't registered, that it wasn't up for public scrutiny, that it wasn't there sitting there so that we could then judge whether that had been given for influence or not. And it's a big chunk of cash, right? I mean, if somebody gave me £5 million, I'd be doing whatever they wanted me to for that money, to be perfectly honest with you. I am a cheap date, but I could be persuaded, I can be manipulated, and I think most people could be for that sort of money, right? I'm not suggesting that he's done anything wrong by accepting this money, except for not registering it so that we could then see it and know that it's there and know that a crypto billionaire had given it to him. And therefore, if he started saying cryptocurrency is the best thing ever and it's in my manifesto that we all move to cryptocurrency, then we would be able to question it. Then we would be able to say, well, is that because that crypto billionaire gave you that money, or is it because you genuinely believe it? But what it means is that we had all the information at hand with which to question Nigel Farage about his choices, given this amount of money. So that is where I stand on this. I think that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Gary said, I don't think it's either witch hunt or stunt. Farage is no different from any other MP or PM. They're all at it, getting freebies. They're all in it for themselves, self-serving, useless so-and-sos. Gary in Glasgow. That, I agree with wholeheartedly. But that is the question, is do we have a right to know when huge amounts of money are gifted to our MPs? Roy is in Hampshire. Hello, Roy.
Oh, good evening, Petrie. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, bearing up under this heat.
Yeah, it was really hot today, right?
Yeah, and I agree with you. Men shouldn't wear shorts, mate, if they're going to work.
Nah, shouldn't happen.
No, never did in the old days.
No. I mean, they do in Australia, but in Australia they have these sort of suits that are really tailored, smartly cut, but they're wearing shorts. And that kind of looks okay, because it's Australia, right? But here, no.
Yeah, but in the old days, I mean, my governors, they used to wear like a linen jacket. It was a beigey colour.
Yeah.
They'd take the suit jacket off and they'd wear this linen jacket because it was a lot cooler.
Yeah, very true. It always looks like it needs a good iron, though, linen, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
Oh, so good. I'm glad we agree on the shorts. What do we think about Nigel Farage?
I think it's a witch hunt. Years ago, I worked at the airport and I joined the Transport and General Workers Union. Mm-hmm. And I found out after I'd been in the union, a few months, that I think it was about £4 a month we were paying. It was deducted out of your wages. And I think it was about 40 or 50 pence was donated to the Labour Party.
Right.
You could contract out, but they never told you this. I only found out through a sort of a back door that, we were giving money to the Labour Party. And do you think of the millions of people in this country that belong to the trade union and how much they're giving to the Labour Party?
Absolutely. I mean, the unions are huge donors to the Labour Party. But
they started the Labour Party, didn't they?
Yeah.
The unions, yeah.
So, look, but the difference, I think, is that that's open. So we know when Labour start siding with the unions over pay rises, we know why, all right? We know that is Labour. They are supported by the unions to a huge amount of money every year. It's just that it's open so that we are then able to say, well, we can scrutinise that. How much influence did the unions have on that? Did the unions have more influence than the non-union? Do you see what I mean? So we can ask questions about it. Whereas if it's not declared, then we don't have that opportunity to say, well, has this brought undue influence or not?
Yeah.
Do you see that? Would you say that was a marked difference, or do you still think that?
No, I still think it's just dirty politics. I mean, the guy, he's been attacked so many times. He's had a milkshake thrown in his face that could have been acid. He's had a rock thrown at him. He's got no police protection. He needs his money to, whether you agree with his politics or not. But he does need security.
But you've got a situation here where George Cotterill was paying for his security, and now we're being told that the Hardbourne money was for security. And then Nigel Farage said, I can spend it on whatever I like, because he was asked how much he'd spent on security, and he said it was none of your business. Well, it is our business to know. Do you not think that other people, had they been... Say it was Keir Starmer, had he been given £5 million... Do you think that he wouldn't be being asked questions about it?
Well, he was. He was getting his glasses. He was getting his suits.
Yeah, because that was declared. That was put on the register of interest, right? So that was declared. So
you had Blair years ago. He used to go and stay at Cliff Richard's place in the West Indies every year for his holidays.
Yeah, but the reason we know about that is because it was declared.
Yeah. You've got that Diane Abbott. She used to be on the what's his name, the Andrew Neil show. She got 700 quid a term.
Yeah, but again, we know about that because it was declared. That's the difference, is that, that Nigel Farage, the reason he's in this sticky mess at the moment is because it wasn't declared. It wasn't put down on the register of interest in the 12 months before he became an MP. That's why the questions are being asked. Not that he was given it, but why it wasn't declared.
But what sort of favours can Nigel give to this guy?
The crypto billionaire?
Yeah, I was just saying, how can he help him?
Well, there's already been some question over a meeting that Nigel Farage had with the Bank of England, who were talking about developing their own cryptocurrencies. And Nigel Farage suggested at this meeting that they didn't produce their own cryptocurrency, and that would have helped Harborne.
Yeah.
So that, and also, you know, Nigel Farage talks about cryptocurrency all the time. He likes it as a future for this country. He'd like to see, you know, more cryptocurrency being used. Now, we don't know, chicken or egg. I'm not suggesting he's done that because he got the 5 million. But the question is, has he done that because he got... Do you know what I mean? So it gives us the right to ask the question if we know about donations coming from billionaires.
Yeah, well, these questions got to be answered if that's the case, then, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's all it is. It's just to say, look, I got this 5 million. Now you can scrutinise me to see if this has brought influence or not. That's all. I don't care that he was given it. It's the fact that we weren't told about it.
Mm.
For me.
I'll just mention another thing, Lovey.
Go on.
Well, why the Tories or the Liberal Party, when there's a general election, have never brought out about Labour and this Fabian Society? We're being governed now by politicians that are all members of this Fabian Society, which is a communist society. Why have the Tories never brought this up, or the Liberals at an election?
Well, I suppose they would need proof that they were all of them in the Fabian Society. In order to do that. And Fabian is not communist, I don't believe, is it?
Yeah, it's a communist organisation.
Well, it's a British socialist organisation.
Yeah, which are, you know, basically they're commies, Lovey. You know, when you think of the damage that Starmer has done to this country since he's been our Prime Minister, the Chagos Islands. I mean, I'm an old soldier, Lovey. You know, I was in the regiment, and I've been worried, you know, for months I might get a knock on the door one day. You know,
and for what are you worried about? The knock on the door in case they...
Well, you know, as I say, I'm ex-Special Forces, you know, and we used to go all over the world, you know, and do the country's bidding.
Yeah, and you're worried that you might be questioned about some of the work that you did.
I'm not really allowed to talk about it, but you never know if you're going to get a knock on the door. And it's Starmer and his, you know, the guy that's his best mate, you know, that's brought all this up. You know,
yeah, I mean, look, there's got to be time limits imposed on all of those things, and I'm you know, I'm a big fan of the armed forces and a big supporter of them, and I think that some of these retrospective court cases are more damaging than anything else, and I'm sure you'll be all right, Roy. But yeah, look, I suppose the Fabian Society is registered as a socialist society, as some people may draw a line to being communist, but I guess that's why they don't bring it up. But Roy, good to talk to you. I do think there's a difference between when you declare what you've been gifted, so we can then see if there's any line to be drawn between the declaration of a gift and what you end up doing or saying because of that gift. That's the way I'd look at it anyway. I've got to take a break, but Roy, thank you for your call, and I'll be back in a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. It is Talk, and it's Talkback, and it's Petrie. We are talking about Nigel Farage and this latest investigation into George Cotterill, Posh George, he was known as, a close friend and advisor of Farage. He's been the Reform UK leader's closest advisor for more than a decade and travels with him in Westminster and around the country. Cotterill, 32 years old, was convicted of fraud in July 2016 for his role in a dark web money laundering plot, and he spent time in prison in the US. He's now seeking a pardon from Donald Trump, so that, even though he's out of prison, so that he can travel to the US in the future, because his criminal record now doesn't allow him to go to the US. He got caught, by the way, trying to suggest to drug dealers on the dark web that he could launder their money for them. So, he met with two people and took, I think it was £20,000 or $20,000 to begin with, to launder that as a test, where it turned out that actually the people that he was doing the deal with were FBI and not drug dealers, although at the time he managed to leave the country, but he went back to the US with Nigel Farage, actually, and was arrested trying to leave the country again. So that's what happened. And George Cotterill, he admitted to it. He confessed to having done this, although he said he was just teasing them. He was planning to steal their money. He wasn't planning to launder it. Which, you know, what a good guy. But anyway, he was going to do that, and he was able to, instead of a 20-year prison sentence, he was able to talk to the FBI and offer them some insight as to how he'd managed to navigate the dark web and navigate talking to these so-called drug dealers, and was able to give them a lot of information. So his sentence of 20 years was commuted to 8 months as part of the deal for him to give lots of information to the FBI. So that's who this guy is. Nigel Farage did know his background. He did know that he'd served time in an American prison, in the American prison system, and why he was there. So, I mean, there are questions to potentially be asked as to why you would accept funds and support from somebody who had a criminal record, but that's not against the law. Cotterill has given Farage a series of benefits in kind, including security, transport, staff and accommodation. He paid for Nigel Farage's private security for a number of years, primarily composed of elite former soldiers and drivers. Cotterill's lawyer said, "Our client has not had time to check his records, but the last payment was in Q1 of 2024. He also recruited and paid 3 staff to transform Farage's social media presence, producing content on immigration and human rights laws that promoted reform. Since the election, Cotterill has let Farage use his 5-storey house that he rents on a street near Buckingham Palace. And Farage said he did not need to disclose the pre-election support because it predated his decision to run for Parliament. He said he did not need to disclose the use of the townhouse as it was provided by a close friend. Farage said he was the victim of an establishment hit job, saying, "I've done no wrongdoing, followed the rules, and I am now considering legal action against the Sunday Times. It's now clear the establishment will stop at nothing to hurt reform. We want to smash their cosy consensus." So that's where he's coming from. Do you agree with that? Let me talk to Mark, who's in Lincolnshire. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Petrie.
What do you make of this?
He wants to smash the establishment that he's very much part of. OK, fair enough. Farage the Mirage, here we go. Yeah, I just think it seems to be on cloud cuckoo land, if I'm honest. The whole optics of all of this for me, it just stinks. You know, it really, really does. You've got the £5 million, you've got the stuff with Cotterill. Now, Harborne and Cottrell have something in common, don't they?
They're both into crypto.
Yeah, they're both crypto money men, these people. They've all been giving him gifts, haven't they? Now, this is where I think it gets interesting from the stuff I was looking at earlier. Nigel Farage, because as far as I'm aware, all of this stuff's taken place within that 12-month period before he became an MP. He's then become an MP. Within 2 days, so all it took was 2 days, he gave a speech. And it's reported on, I've looked at the press article and confirmed all this. Within 2 days, he gave a speech. Was he talking about immigration? Was he talking about the benefits bill? Was he talking about any of these issues, the real reform issues? No, he wasn't. What he was talking about was, well, in actual fact, I'll tell you exactly what the headline says I was looking at. It says, Nigel Farage calls for UK crypto push as reform campaign kicks off. And in this speech, what he's talking about is obviously pro-crypto policies, including deregulation, opposing certain central bank digital currency plans.
Like the Bank of England, yeah.
Yeah. Anti-debanking protections for crypto users, lower taxes on crypto assets, and making the UK a global crypto hub.
I know. I mean, look, we can't help drawing a line directly, right? Because but I mean, it could be coincidence. We can't preempt the investigation. And Nigel Farage says he's done nothing wrong. But Mark, like I've been saying, it's not about the money. It's about the money not being declared, right? So that had it been honestly declared, then we can draw that line and then we can scrutinise Nigel Farage and say, did you make that speech because of the money you've been given or not? But if we didn't know about the money, then we just think it's his original idea. That's where I'm coming from on this.
Yeah, well, this is it, isn't it? I mean, see, the problem is on this as well. The only get-out he has from the parliamentary rules, as I've read those rules, and I've gone through them a couple of times now, they seem pretty clear to me.
They are very simple and clear, yeah.
Yeah, the only get-out he has is if the donation or benefit or whatever it is considered not reasonably associated with political activity. Now, this is the excuse he's using. However, that doesn't hold water either, does it? Because since 2021, he's been the majority shareholder of Reform UK. He's been their honorary president that entire time. He's spoken about Reform UK and its policies and pushed them and promoted them. So he's been very much politically active with Reform UK. So,
Reform UK Limited.
Yeah, well, this is it.
Because it's a company, not a political party.
Yeah, exactly. So I fail to see what defence he has here. It's like I've said to people before on this, the stupid thing is, all he ever had to do was declare this stuff. If he declared it, none of this would be happening right now.
No, it really wouldn't.
But again, because he doesn't declare it, and then you look at who's donated to him, you look at the first thing he's coming out with as the leader of the party, and including the policy they now have on this, and you can't help but draw conclusions and think, well, there's obviously something a bit iffy here, because why not just declare this?
I mean, that is the point, Mark. That's the point we're making. I don't care. It's like talking to Roy a moment ago, lovely Roy, and him saying, yeah, well, Diane Abbott did this. But they were declared so that we are then able to scrutinise it. It's in the public domain, and that's what needs to happen. First of all, I think that no donator should be allowed to donate more than £100,000. Well, whoever they are, whatever their intentions are. And we've got to stop this. We've got to stop this money coming in, and whether it's declared or not, I think it should stop. I think it should stop. It's time to draw a line under this and have a different, more honest form of politics.
Yeah, 100%. I think I can't see it ever happening. But there's too many suckling from the teat of the gravy train and what have you, isn't it?
I know, but this is why we as normal, ordinary people don't stand a blooming chance, do we?
Well, this is it.
Mark, it's lovely to talk to you. Thank you for calling in. I really appreciate you. Thank you. I've got to take a break because I'm really late to everything today, so I'll be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until the top of the hour. And of course, at 1 o'clock, that very controversial game between the US and Belgium begins. So make sure, well, you'll switch on to Talk Sport, but they'll be covering all of that for you from 1 o'clock onwards. So no need to touch the dial, no need to go anywhere. That'll be being covered for you by colleagues at Talk Sport at 1 o'clock. We're, though, talking about Nigel Farage and these rich donors that seem to be looking after him, which is fine. I literally have no issue with that at all. It's just the fact that declarations, I believe, should be being made, and those are the rules. Right. Ernie says there are 650 MPs in Parliament at the moment. How many of them are currently being investigated, having money being given to them that they haven't declared? I'm sure there's plenty. But because it might be a gift from a friend or family, no, that doesn't need to be declared, you see. If it's close, a family gift that couldn't possibly reasonably be seen as having any influence on anything. But not a substantial amount like Farage received. They're probably slipping under the radar, yet thousands of pounds can make someone turn a blind eye or get something done for that. Let the inquiry come to its conclusion. I hope a fair conclusion. That's the time to talk about it. If it was a criminal offence and someone was being investigated, we wouldn't be able to discuss it. No, we wouldn't. But it isn't a criminal offence, so we can. Farage clearly wasn't hiding anything, or how would anyone know about the donations? Only he has access to his bank accounts. That's from Ernie. Well, because of some really good investigative journalism, actually. And he didn't deny it, did he? So they've clearly got the evidence. So it's just one of those things. And Joanna has said, Nigel Farage took legal advice about all monies when he took over reform. He's not a complete moron to set himself up knowing he's a target. He has several businesses which are declared, and a lot of things are declared in those, including houses. How much influence do unions get for their 10 million yearly donations, pay rises, etc.? Exactly, but they declare it. It is out there in the open so that we can then scrutinise it or question it, or at least know why things are happening. If it's not declared, we cannot possibly know why things are happening, and that's the point. Had he declared this money and then did a big speech on cryptocurrencies, we might have reasonably been able to ask if he had made that because of the donation. If he said no, then fair enough. But at least then we would have it open out in the public domain. We would know about it. So we would therefore be able to scrutinise why certain decisions are taken and why certain things are said. That's the difference for me. And anyway, that is the difference, not just for me. Kevin is in Basingstoke. Hi, Kevin.
2010, just after the Brexit vote, he's bought 5 huge, big, great houses, and them were for cash. He was saying he was broke, wasn't he? That's why Coots.
Yeah, there was that big thing about Coots, wasn't there, as well? I thought he was right to take Coots on, actually, because they debanked him, didn't they, for whatever reason.
Okay to do that because they said they own, I think it's HSBC or something, and they said you can have a HSBC account if you want, and he wasn't happy with that. He wanted his posh Coots.
Yeah, because you have to have a certain amount in your deposit account to be in Coots. Yeah.
Over £1 million. But he's broken the rules 17 times since he's been an MP for not declaring £370,000. And when you become an MP, you get like an induction day where they say, look, you have to fill this out. If there's in any doubt that you think should be, just put it down so it's all registered.
Yeah, I mean, that is the point. It is the rules are, if you are in any doubt that this could be seen to be, you know, if it could be judged to be, like I said, if his mum or whoever bought him a car or even bought him a house, that you wouldn't see that as being undue influence because the mum has got nothing to gain from that, or the partner or the friend or whatever. So those are the ones you don't have to declare. But anything that could be judged as being potentially prejudicial or advantageous should be declared. If you're in any doubt, just declare it and it's there. It's out in the public.
This posh George, he was sent to prison for not money laundering.
Oh, wait, actually, what? It was, yeah, for fraud. It was wire fraud.
And Nigel's always saying, oh, we don't want all these criminals coming over here. Bankrolled by one.
Well, yeah, I mean, George is British, and you know, posh George, who apparently calls Nigel Daddy, or is referred to him as Daddy. Look, the thing is, as we were just saying a moment ago, that George Cottrell and Christopher Harborne do have something in common. They are both into crypto. They are both a part of the crypto world. And it just looks, if it looks dodgy, then we have a right to question it. That's all I'm saying. Look, even if Nigel's done nothing wrong, even if that is the case, right, and the investigation will find out, the inquiry will find out. But the point is that we need to know about these things.
To hide it. I mean, he used to do all those press conferences. I think he did one every day.